All right, here we go. Take two. Welcome, everybody, to the Voices of Reason.
We're professionals.
Yes, thank you. I'm Ryan Keller. We had a little technical difficulties. We started this for about 10 minutes, and
We weren't recording anything.
Correct. So we were just talking amongst each other.
It was now 10 minutes.
Now we invite you.
Exactly.
So welcome. I'm going to start off introducing everybody. John Moffitt.
Hello.
Sam Marholick.
Hello.
Nick.
Howdy.
And Andy Day.
Nice to meet you.
All right. So little quick background story, I guess, of how this all got started. History. Good job. See, that's why I keep you guys around. We've been together as friends for most of us since like 5th grade.
At least 8 years, something.
Andy, you joined the group, what, about 10 years ago, 12 years ago?
Ish.
Sam, about the same?
It was like 15.
15.
So about 15 years ago.
We've had a mass group text going on for quite a long time.
Years, yeah.
And we talk about sports and amongst other things.
And apparently people think we're funny when we talk about these things.
Sometimes. Well, we think we're funny, and that's all that matters.
That is all that matters.
So we decided that we were going to start a Facebook page called the Voices of Reason. A lot of guys here have some journalism background, like to talk about sports. So we started writing articles and decided it was time to do a podcast. Why not?
Why not? It's America, right? I mean, you're basically hearing what our group text message is right now.
Kind of. Censored group text message.
Yeah, there's a little bit that you can't see.
Correct.
I mean, we want to see.
You don't want to see.
So we're going to jump right into it. The NFL made a big rule change. It's going to be a trial period for this next year, where offense and defensive pass interference is going to be a challengeable penalty. The coach is going to have the option to throw the little red flag out there and challenge offense and defensive pass interference. And then inside 2 minutes, the booth is going to be able to call down and challenge it from the booth. Thoughts? I'm not sure how I feel about this yet.
So if you guys like football, be prepared for another 2 hours of it for every game. I think it's stupid. If they wanted to experiment with the idea of just doing the booth in the 2 minutes, I actually think that might not be a bad idea, because that's when games are kind of decided. It's hard to say that the first drive of a game is the most crucial. So, but as Nick alluded to, it's going to just increase the time in which games are played. I think it opens up a can of worms that's unnecessary. What's going to be next? Offense and defensive holding, roughing the passers, a huge, point of focus already in the league. I can only imagine it's going to be reviewable soon, whether it was or it wasn't. Offsides, false starts, things like that. These are penalties. I mean, not every call is going to get hit every single game. There's going to be blown calls. There's going to be missed calls. It's part of the human element of having human referees.
I mean, that makes the game fun too.
Absolutely. And, we kind of
miserable.
So obviously this came about as a result of the NFC Championship game last year with the blown, or I guess non-pass interference call against
it was terrible.
the Rams. It was absolutely
really bad.
Anybody with any understanding of football knew that was pass interference, and for whatever reason it wasn't called. But let's not kid ourselves and say that was the only call that was missed or that dictated the outcome of the game.
Yeah.
Was it a major momentum swing? Absolutely. But, that's on Sean Payton to kind of rally his guys and say, hey, we need to stop it. And was that the fourth down? Was it a fourth down play?
Yeah.
So
I think so.
Essentially that may have been the game. Yeah. But,
if I was a Saints fan, I'd be livid.
But it wasn't the game. The Saints had the opportunity in overtime to drive, and Drew Brees threw an interception.
Yeah, but if they score there, you make it much more difficult for the other team to get points, and you don't even go into overtime.
Right. Who's to say they wouldn't have scored? They would have scored.
True.
Yeah, had it been a completed pass, it would have just been in field goal range, right? It wasn't in the end zone.
Correct.
What?
No.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, but to your point about changing the rules, how many times did pass interference, or not pass interference, but roughing the passer get called when the wind blew the quarterback down.
Yeah, I agree. There are a lot of shoulder pads that were looking like face masks to the officials, where you brush the pad and they throw the flag. So
and not even that. The idea of if a linebacker or a defensive player in general lands with the weight, that rule is just silly.
Oh, it's stupid.
You landed with all your weight on the guy. What are you supposed to do?
That's what I'm worried about, because when that rule changed, it forced everybody to practice and train differently. Like all of a sudden you have to tackle a different way. Now all these players are going to come in and they suddenly have to defend a pass a different way. Otherwise, if they get...
And it's already a passing league. It's geared towards the offense. And I think this is just another thing that's going to make it... You're going to have higher scoring games. There's going to be more deep balls down the field. I mean, that's what the NFL wants.
I could imagine trying to play defensive back.
Well, I can imagine playing defense, period.
Yeah. You have to remember that a lot of these players that do make it to this level are trained from when they're in Pee Wee football at 7, 8 years old to hit this way and drive this way. And
which, to be fair, a lot of them are still doing it the correct way.
Right.
But... with the way that people naturally define
but when you're taught to do something for 10 years and then you go to an NCAA program and they teach you again for another 3 years and then you get to the pros and they're like, oh, wait, do it differently.
I started playing football when I was 5 years old. I was taught to drive my opponent into the ground.
It didn't matter what position you were hitting.
No. No, if I have a free shot at the quarterback, I want to hit him as hard as I can. I mean, most of the time the quarterback's the best player on the other team.
Especially when you're 5.
I want to do what I can to hit him. Yeah. Screw you, Cam Newton.
Here's another thing that we didn't really ever bring up is, so this is going to lead to more what I call the the NBA syndrome, where how many times do you see a guy take a 3-point shot just to get fouled?
Yes.
So now you're going to see receivers
jumping into a defender,
intentionally get their progress impeded, find a way to get the defender off balance so that he can run into him and get it. So now it's a spot foul in the NFL. So now, even if you're an average quarterback, you're going to make a deep shot down the field, hope your receiver kind of gets that call, and boom, you get 30 yards.
Like a lot of plays, you see both guys fighting for it too. And are you just going to be like, path interference on both guys, offsetting penalties, replay the down?
Is it not true that the NFL preaches that the defender has just as much a right to the ball as the receiver?
As long as they're looking at the ball, they have just as much right to the ball.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
Just to sort of walk it back real quick, is there a possibility that maybe we're just slightly overreacting because they still have the same amount of challenges per game and they usually waste them anyway?
Well, so here's the other thing is obviously it's going to have to be something that's very egregious. You're not going to just be like, hey, it's midway through the first quarter, second down.
But
you had
let's just wait for Mike Tomlin to throw a flag in the first 4 minutes of the first Steelers game.
But to your point earlier, where you said that receivers are now going to try to impede to get that call, they might be more apt to like, hey, we really need to get in field goal range in the last, for this drive. Otherwise,
Julio, go up.
Now,
make sure you get hit when you go up.
Is this the first judgment call that is eligible to be challenged? Toes in, catching, possession. Oh, the possession's just a whole nother story. But fumble recovery, those are all things that you could legitimately see on a replay.
Yeah.
This is going to be the first one where the official is going to be like, I'm going to make a judgment call on this. And how do you think that's going to affect the way people think?
I don't know if you want to call spot fouls like a judgment call, where the ball is spotted somewhere. That's kind of a bit of a judgment call, but you can challenge that. It doesn't really seem to change too much.
I just think it's unnecessary. Like I said, I think it's going to lead to, who's to say that next season they're not going to experiment with offsides or holding?
I think in the NHL, certain challenge,
hockey, by the way.
Yes, the greatest sport ever.
In Canada,
there are certain challenges that you get a 2-minute penalty on if you challenge the play and it is wrong. Do you think maybe the NFL should be like, all right, if we're going to give you guys the options, if you challenge and you miss it, it's a 10-yard penalty or a 5-yard penalty?
Yeah, because you're already losing your timeout
and you're losing the down.
Yeah, those are pretty high currency.
I don't think anybody on the rules committee is going to impose that on themselves.
Yeah. Here's a question. Maybe in terms of strategy, how many times are coaches going to be maybe against throwing a flag because they think, hey, maybe at the end of the game something's going to get screwed up, so we should hold on to the flags?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that goes, you could say that about anything, honestly. Like, if you have a receiver who makes a reception on the sideline and they call out or something like that, like, are you more inclined to challenge in the first quarter versus with 4 minutes to go till half?
Right. Are you going to take that?
That's kind of the point.
Are you going to take that 1st and goal from the 3 challenge and get it? Or are you just going to try it 3 more times?
Exactly. So I don't think that specifically is going to alter the way anybody makes the challenges. It's just, I think it's an unnecessary addition to what's challengeable in the beginning in the first place.
The best.
Who's going to be the first, diva receiver to walk up to his coach and say, "I got grabbed on that play, throw the flag," and then they're gonna you're gonna waste your flag. It's a 1 year trial. I don't think that it's gonna end up.
I think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be great because what's gonna happen is the Saints are gonna get to the Super Bowl and they're gonna get challenged and they're gonna lose. And Sean Payne's
talk about irony right there.
That's how
I feel like the best thing that could happen.
For anyone that doesn't know, Andy's a hardcore Minnesota Vikings fan.
I hate the
he
Saints.
has no bias whatsoever towards the Saints.
The best thing that can happen out of this entire experiment is that the referees in the NFL get trained better. Last year, you had so many terrible, terrible calls, not only with pass interference, but with roughing the passer, with offsides, with spot fouls, with dead ball calls being called dead, even though they weren't dead, like, running the ball back for a touchdown and just take it away.
To your point, and we kind of said, I can't imagine being a defender in the NFL these days. I couldn't imagine being an official because there's so much that's thrown on their shoulders now.
The game's so fast.
It's so fast paced. Let's be honest. There's some type of foul
12 of them on the field.
Play. Well, right, but they're all assigned to specific duties. So when somebody misses, how many times, in that?
Well, that's what's so egregious about that. You have the line judge miss it. You have the end zone judge miss it. You have the field judge miss it.
Well, all of them aren't right there on that side of the field.
But still, you
could have seen that from the
moon. When I see the defensive end tackle
looking right,
you could have seen that from the moon.
I'm not sure what he saw or didn't see, but
didn't something come out after that?
Did he ever say anything? Did that ref ever?
I thought something came out too that he was a fan of the.
He was from LA.
There was some speculation about that.
But the defensive back for LA came out and said, "I interfered on that play. You should have thrown a flag on me."
Well, at that point,
right after the
game.
Right after the game.
Well, but so right now you have the ability to challenge whether or not there's 12 men on the field on defense. That makes sense because
you count.
Exactly. It's simple math.
My kid can do that.
The human element, I think, it belongs in sports, and I know they're trying to get rid of it, whether it's the NFL, NBA,
baseball,
MLB, whatever. But you're never going to fully get rid of that human element. So why are we putting all this focus into lengthening the games, making these things more egregious than they need to be? If it's that big of a deal, overcome it. Again, we talked about the Saints. That wasn't the end of the game. They could have come back from it. They could have done something. It could have been a rallying point. But, it's just one of those things. I think that it's unnecessary because it's going to create so much more windfall on the back end with now. Who's not to say that in the season there's going to be an egregious holding penalty and that's going to change something for 2020, or there's going to be a blown, couldn't even tell you call.
The passer, trip.
Delay of game. How many times have you seen where the quarterback takes the snap where there's been 0 on the play clock for 3 seconds?
Oh yeah.
And the announcers are like, guys, what's going on? Bam.
I mean, would it really kill to have a couple guys in the box who could hit a buzzer and buzz down to the official on the field when they miss something?
I'm not against it.
I think it would be great. It would speed up the game because they're already up there. Instead of having the official on the field, walk over to the sideline, get under a booth, sit there for 2 minutes while they go to a commercial break, come back, wait for them to put the camera on him, and then tell it. These guys are sitting in the booth, have multiple replays and angles and sitting there. It would be so much easier for them to hit the button, have it go to an earpiece.
Yeah, but then how would you make any money?
I was just going to say, the people who love this right now are the advertisers.
Oh, yeah.
Because now you're adding 2 to 3 additional TV breaks a game. So,
well, I mean, are you though? Because you're still only having the 2 challenges.
Yeah, but I feel like
how much longer is it going to actually lengthen the game?
But
if you use your 2 challenge anyways,
a judgment call is going to take you longer to figure out than a fumble.
I'll give you that.
You can only have 2 challenges, but the refs can challenge whatever they want as many times as they want.
And not to mention how many, if we go in and look, I'm sure there's a high percentage of games where no challenges or only 1 challenge were done in a game. This, I feel like, is going to encourage the use of challenges because there are so many of these plays every single game that can honestly probably go either way.
Yeah.
So you're going to have challenge. You're going to have guys like Sean Payton who are more apt to challenge things. You're just like, screw it. We're going to throw the flag and see if we get lucky. If we lose the time.
I think it'll slow the game down more inside of 2 minutes.
Yes.
Because you're going to have guys who are just going to be like, I'm just going to throw it deep and see what happens. Because if it's close, then the booth has to challenge it. So what would keep me from just saying, all right, Hail Mary, let's go?
And you kind of talked about this on the first iteration that never got recorded, but we've seen a lot of games come down to a last play Hail Mary where every single person is being interfered with in some capacity, offensive and defensive. If there's a super egregious one, it's usually called. However, this is going to just
when you're slowing it down. You're zooming in. You're seeing who's pushing who.
How many are you honestly going to end a game on offensive pass interference? I guarantee the NFL will never let that happen. And how many times have you seen where these Hail Marys?
They take a 15-second runoff on pass interference for a Hail Mary.
How many times have you seen the Green Bay defender push the guy, the Green Bay receiver push away the defender, and Aaron Rodgers gets credit for this awesome Hail Mary? Well, yeah, but that was blatantly
3 times. Is it 3? I think he's got 3.
But there's 6 people in the end zone.
And I don't mean to pick on him, but
he throws them.
If you watch football, you see that is the case, where offensive players are just as frequent.
Seattle does it too, right?
Well, they don't throw the ball anymore.
No. Well, they used to.
I think because Russell Wilson's running for his life.
It's like you said, you could call it on almost any play.
Yeah.
So
let's say, and again, that leads to holding or whatever. So I just feel like it's unnecessary, and it's just going to almost encourage these kind of things for other penalties in the future.
So there was another rule. Oh, go ahead.
So that's 2 things. Let's just call a spade and say the offense the NFL wants 50-point games weekly,
which they do.
That Chiefs and Rams game last year, what was 55-46.
So fun to watch.
That's what they want. It was fun to watch.
Their defensive strat card is going to be terrible, though.
It is. And all the rule changes have done a lot of things to benefit the offense and neuter the defense, and it's just one of those things that maybe they think that it's for ratings. Who the heck knows? But and to get to your, there's another rule that I missed in all of this, and it's actually related to ejections. So, and the rule states officials can now eject players for both flagrant football and non-football acts. Previously, a player would have to throw a punch or commit a flagrant non-football act. Now officials can eject players for flagrant hits during plays. So Vontez Burfict might as well just quit playing football.
He did. Got cut.
I think he has
He's in Oakland.
He's in Oakland.
Yeah.
Of course he's in Oakland.
Where else would he fit in Oakland?
Yeah.
So is that reviewable? Because boom, there's your next year's rule. By the way, did anyone?
That's reviewable by the book.
I guarantee there's going to be a situation where somebody either gets tossed and shouldn't have, or doesn't get tossed and should have.
A judgment call, or where the second guy gets caught and the first guy did something.
Look at Odell and Josh Norman from was it last year or the year before? Where
fighting on the side,
literally throwing punches and kneeing each other in the head on running plays,
within the 3-yard,
and no one got tossed in that game.
He might be a 4 blocking strat.
I seriously
hashtag Stratomatic.
But it's going to lead to more situations where there's going to be a high-profile game, whether it's a primetime game or a postseason game, where something like that happens. Either a guy doesn't get booted and he should have, or does get booted and he shouldn't have, and now all of a sudden that's reviewable. And the next year there's going to be a holding call that was missed or was called and shouldn't have been. And then the next year that's going to be reviewable. So eventually every flag that is thrown is going to be challenged.
Just put someone in the booth then.
The interesting
have them review every single play.
So I hope you hate Sunday afternoons because you'll be watching football from 1 to midnight.
The interesting thing
You'll
is
probably be watching the games for another day.
When they did implement these rules, you had 31 out of 32 teams support these rules. The only ones were the Bengals because
they're old.
Because they're the Bengals.
Because they're old.
But I don't see who would have not supported this ejection rule.
One more thing I want to touch on with rules too. The NFL adopted the kickoff rule from the previous year. How long do you think it's going to take until they do what the AAF did and just eliminate kickoffs altogether?
I think they're going to eliminate kickers altogether.
It's coming faster than you think.
I mean, you saw it last year. How many extra points were missed? You move the ball back 5 or 10 yards, and it's all of a sudden it's like they forget how to do their job. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to slam NFL kickers because and
half these guys are in a dome,
right?
Forgetting how to do
or on natural, on ideal scenario and surfaces and whatnot. But I think the NFL is moving more toward, as Sam kind of pointed to earlier, more points, more offense, more thrills and whatnot is going to lead to more eyes on the product, more money, etc. So I honestly feel like it's only a matter of time before kickers are gone entirely.
I think there was a proposition this year to have a multiple point option after touchdowns, depending on how far back your yardage was.
I heard something about that, like a 4th and 15 or something.
Right.
It was shocking.
You would do something like that and get more than 2 points. But
that's silly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's been a long time coming. Ever since they changed the kickoff rule, where they're always just booting them out of the end of the end zone.
Right.
There's kickoff returners are basically useless now.
Which that's the other thing too. Is as a kicker,
safety.
I mean, if you're okay, you boot the ball out of the end zone, you're guaranteed to give the opponent the ball on the 25-yard line. How much confidence do you instill in your special teams players? You have no confidence in your gunners that are going to get down the field, because if you had good kickers that could put the ball consistently on the 2. Maybe your special teams gunner gets down there and forces a return, and they get it down inside the 15-yard line or something like that.
I think that's more about not giving your gunners brain pudding.
Yeah.
I used to love the kickoff. Some of the most exciting plays.
Oh, Josh Cribbs.
Devin Hester, Josh Cribbs.
I watched Eric Metcalf die in Nebraska. Dante Hall.
The human joystick. So it's just good. I think it'll be a matter of time before
Kickoff are all gone altogether.
Yeah. Yep.
It's
I think they're going to take the ball at the 25 and then go from there.
Well, I'm actually not. I'm indifferent towards it. I don't have.
Think of it from a roster standpoint. If you're a general manager, would you want an extra defensive back or the kicker?
But if you take away a kicker
You're
off,
still going to have to pay the kicker for.
Not if you get rid of them altogether.
if you take away a kickoff, you also take away the possibility of having an onside kick.
Again, what the AAF did, they actually proposed the rule this year.
Yeah.
To take onside kicks, you take a 4th and 15. If you get it, you get the ball. If you don't get it, the other team gets the ball either where your play started or where you were tackled at.
But of course, on that onside kick, 4th and 15, you're going to challenge whether or not the defender had interfered.
That
would be phenomenal.
No, that would be horrible.
All right, moving up back. It's like we took a commercial break. We didn't pause this or anything.
We're totally not sponsored, although if anyone would like to.
Yeah, if anyone wants to sponsor us, feel free. You can hit us up at turnupthevoice@gmail.com.
But it's not free.
Also, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram,
That tweeter thing.
Twitter,
Grinder.
I mean,
coming soon.
Sam's personal page.
All right. So with that, we're going to segue into...
Not if you're in Brunei.
Boy, let's not segue into anything from that. Let's just pretend that never happened.
All right. NFL free agency. We're going to touch on that a little bit. Hey, there we go.
People making money.
Some big names moving around this offseason. You got Nick Foles going to Jacksonville. Ridiculous contract. Le'Veon Bell ending up with the Jets.
Terrible.
Jet.
Antonio Brown's career ending in Oakland/Vegas, because I guess they're still in Oakland this year, and then Vegas.
One more year,
next
supposedly, potentially.
Boy, we're a very glass half empty kind of bunch, aren't we?
Yeah. Right.
Have you met him? No, you haven't.
Raiders also picking up Terrell Williams from the Chargers.
Yep.
Tyrell Williams?
Tyrell.
Yeah. And Vontez Burfict.
Same thing. Yeah, don't forget about Vontez. And then
back to the Raiders of old.
And then with the Browns,
the free agency winners,
picking up Kareem Hunt, and there's this Odell guy.
Yeah,
I've heard of him.
I think, yeah. Which I thought was a great trade. I read
not if you're the Giants.
well, for Cleveland at least. I read something where the Browns scouting department felt that there were only like 15 first-round talents. So they had 17th?
Yes. 17.
So 17 of them was a second round pick, and they didn't grade that pick as a first rounder. So I mean,
if it did grade as a first round talent, Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah. Well, the Giants graded it as a
they
first
apparently
round
also
talent.
Graded Jabril Peppers as a first
The Giants
round
have
talent, which the Browns did take.
It's a fun fact. If you go back, there's an article written by Tony Grossi of ESPN Cleveland. Yeah, but he actually wrote about what draft was that with Beck? Was it 2014?
2014.
Yeah.
The Browns have like 7 guys from that 14 draft, and none of them were guys that they drafted. So it's an incredible read.
Well, considering who they drafted in 2014, I don't think you want to keep any of the guys drafted.
I might actually have to read a Tony Grossi article now.
I'm sorry for your loss.
Don't waste your time.
They're riddled with spelling errors.
Half hour, I'll never get back.
He just said it was good. Now you guys are bashing it.
The article's great.
See?
Grossi's just a snarky.
Let's hope he does not listen to this.
Spoiler, he doesn't.
Actually, it would be crazy if he did. That would be pretty dope.
Tweet us about it.
I just remember listening to his takes after they drafted Baker last year. Remember driving
terrible
to see the Avengers. Can I say that?
Yeah, you can say Avengers.
Yeah, we can
We're
say
not sponsored by Marvel.
No.
All rights reserved.
I mean, technically Disney.
I said Baker was going to be great.
Right.
Believed me.
It's true.
Cookie Monster. Baker Mayfield is Cookie Monster's favorite quarterback in the NFL.
He's my favorite quarterback.
He said that 3 days ago.
I remember sitting at the draft and Other people weren't happy, but I was.
I was shocked. I wasn't disappointed or I wasn't excited. I was
loved
more
it.
surprised.
I called it a couple of days in advance.
I was indifferent.
I
thought it was
remember
great.
earlier in the day, the news kind of broke that was the guy they were leaning toward, and all the chips had kind of been pushed into that. And I still didn't really believe it come draft time. And, when Roger Goodell announced that Baker was the first pick, I was pretty dumbfounded.
I was just so happy it wasn't Rosen.
It's, the biggest thing is it's such an anti-Cleveland move. And I know John Dorsey has certainly changed the 40.
He's awesome.
He's
so good. Build the statue.
It would be so Cleveland Browns for them to have drafted a Josh Allen or a Josh Rosen, and he either
Or
completely
Richardson.
sit the first year or be thrown into the mix and just absolutely destroy his career. And you're scrambling right now this time of year to find the next guy or something like that.
So
But
since we brought up Rosen, let's get back to our free agency deals. Is he going to be on the Cardinals?
he will be a New York Giant.
So there's a little bet going on here too, right?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Between John and Sam.
Tell us the bet.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So, little background on that. Sam and I like to have prop bets on pretty much anything because we dare each other to take the other person out for Mexican food.
Or eating socks.
Even if I lose, it works out.
Right, exactly.
Except that's
Win or lose, you get Mexican
socks.
food. So, anywho, this year's bet involves Josh Rosen. Well, the one we'll focus on here involves Josh Rosen. I personally feel that he will have a new address come draft time, and he will be traded for at least the compensation of a first-round pick. My internal prediction is that he will end up with the New York Giants, possibly for the 17th pick that they acquired from Cleveland for Odell. I doubt that they would be willing to part with, 4? I think that they have 3 or 4.
6.
6,
Yeah. Okay, 6. So, that's my prediction, is that Josh Rosen will be a New York Giant come draft day for the price of at least a first-round pick.
I'm sure he could hand the ball to Saquon Barkley 32 times a game.
Well, he has no one to throw to.
Yeah,
He's got
Shepard's there? Yeah.
Sterling Shepard.
Is Amani
Evan Ingram. That's
Evan Ingram, yeah.
Yeah.
Plaxico Burress. Anyway,
So,
so, my end of the bet is I still think he'll get traded, but I don't think there's a chance he goes for a first round pick.
So basically, no one is saying that he's on the Cardinals.
I think we're all in agreement of
Without
that.
a doubt.
It's just going to be the compensation. And maybe had the Cardinals not been stupid at the combine and said, I'd take this guy with the first pick. Maybe they're being tongue-in-cheek, maybe they're not, but you already sound like you're not invested in the guy you have.
Man.
You would not have signed Cliff Kingsbury to be your head coach if you didn't have every single intention of drafting his quarterback for his system number 1 overall.
I don't see Kyler Murray doing
I think
a whole lot in the
Well, I don't
NFL.
either. I don't either. But you can't argue that
He'd have made so much more money in Major League
destined
Baseball
to be the first pick.
than he would have, especially with the contracts that are being thrown around in Major League Baseball. Mike Trout, just a ridiculous contract. Was it 10 years, 300 million?
It's better than Bobby Bonilla.
$30 million.
It's better than Bobby Bonilla.
Manny Machado getting overpaid. Bryce Harper, who has been incredibly average his entire career,
He hit a home run.
getting overpaid. I pulled up a list of the highest paid contracts in forever.
Sports.
In all of sports. Yes, that is what we're talking
That
about.
thing.
In all of sports, and
Athletic games.
baseball is just
That's outrageous.
stupid.
It's outrageous.
That's
The
what
amount
they're
of money
selling
being thrown around, and a lot of it is guaranteed money.
Aren't they all guaranteed? Like
Yeah.
baseball contracts completely
I think
guaranteed?
I think so, right?
I don't think they're all guaranteed.
I think
Maybe.
that's baseball. Andy, you know more about baseball than me, at least.
I'd say most, if not all.
Sam, you got that computer
got
tablet
the
thingy there. Let's see what it says.
I think the baseball
Let's
argument is it basically comes down to the 160 games versus 16.
Irrelevant. It doesn't matter. I mean, if you break down, if you do
The physicality is completely different.
Well, you also have one guy, i.e. a Bryce Harper, who's making more than an entire club is paying out in the NFL.
He's also playing in a sport where it's 1-on-9.
He's also playing a sport where the most contact he has is if the ball grazes his shin.
So I have a theory about it, and I'll relay it to you, and you tell me what you think. So we're how many years removed away from the steroid era in baseball? It's been a long time, right?
Yeah, probably at least a decade or more.
So, like back in 2003, I remember there was an argument to be made for the overspending in baseball because the New York Yankees were fielding their day one infield on opening day with, I think it was 2003, 2004. They had Jason Giambi, Jorge Posada, A-Rod Jeter, and Robinson Cano as their infield. It was a $100 million infield at the time. This was 16 years ago. But the $100 million didn't include Robinson Cano yet because it was just his first year. So we're 16 years away from that. We don't have these. Not every team is filled with all-star sluggers cranking out home runs. So
And very few are.
I think that maybe some of that has to do with locking down one player. I don't agree with it. I think it's stupid. But locking down one player who is presumably the best at what he does, Trout and Machado and Harper. So
Harper's not the best at what he does.
I'm not saying he is, but that's
I'm sorry.
That's their justification.
I like Bryce Harper. I like the energy he brings to the team, but he's a very average hitter and a very average fielder. He's average with a very average arm.
But that's the thing is these franchises
I have the answer to our question.
Okay.
I'm going to read this. Players who obtain major league contracts, either via free agency or extensions, are guaranteed the full amount of money promised by those contracts. So, conversely, players signed to minor league contracts must earn a spot on the roster in spring training or via an in-season promotion in order to have their contracts guaranteed.
So everybody in the pros has a guaranteed contract.
As long as they, yes.
Why would Kyler Murray go play football?
He's not.
Because
to that point, somebody came to him and told him, like, you pick football, we will pick you first.
Yeah, but
in 2020, there's going to be a lockout. 2021, there'll be a lockout.
I don't think they pitched that idea to him, though.
Yeah. I think the NFL is heading in a bad direction with the big money being thrown around in Major League Baseball. And you can see it now with players who are signing these free agent contracts or being traded and then re-signing in contracts. The amount of guaranteed money that's being thrown around the NFL now is getting a little
Wait till a long snapper gets $60 million.
I have another theory for that part of it.
You like long snappers.
So with the guaranteed money being thrown around now and all these big contracts happening, isn't this kind of what we wanted? Because we were complaining 10 years ago about the rookies coming in, not playing a single down and getting $80 million.
Sam Bradford.
Sam Bradford, right.
Was he the last one?
So now the rookie
was responsible. Cam was the first one on the rookie.
The rookie wage scale has been in effect for how long now? And all those old contracts have pretty much run out.
But that's why these contracts are coming up.
Now they have a lot of money for the veterans, which I think was the original idea. We're just now seeing that effect.
You have these people that are coming in, like the Jets, who don't have to pay Sam Darnold a ton of money, like the Browns, who don't have to pay Baker Mayfield a ton of money. So they can afford to go out and get these 4 or 5 other players at a premium to try to surround your rookie quarterback with means to succeed. That being said, who says Darnold's going to stay in New York after 5 years? Who says Baker's going to stay in Cleveland after 5 years?
He will.
These guys could just up and leave. But that money may not be there in 5 years. I mean, you're going to have to make that choice between Myles Garrett and Baker Mayfield.
Well, you're going to take the quarterback every time.
Right.
Sorry, Miles.
I think with the NFL having a salary cap and Major League Baseball not to is going to keep that down a little bit.
Yeah, it'll help.
I think Major League Baseball should have a salary cap.
I think the fact that the luxury tax is basically meaningless. All these teams are willing to pay it.
Yeah, except for Cleveland.
Money, why not throw it around?
Except for the Indians.
Well, so I'm glad you said that because that kind of sparks another whole thing. So with the NFL, there's so much parity. Like at least one team every season makes the playoffs that didn't make the year before. Okay, and that's awesome. It gives you a reason to cheer unless you're a Bills fan. You think your team's going to do something. In baseball, it's the same 5 or 6 teams, save the Astros kind of coming out of nowhere. But in baseball, you essentially buy your championship.
We're not that far away having been removed from a Royals World Series, though.
That's fair.
And,
but they're all one and done. It's a flash in the pan, and then they go away.
That's true. You're the big teams like the Angels and the Dodgers stick around.
And look what the Marlins did, though. The Marlins had an amazing team. They were doing well. And then when
fire sale.
Yeah.
Second time they've done it.
Whereas, and I know you'll love this, Andy, you look at the Patriots, and they've constantly overachieved with guys that probably aren't the best at their position on any other team.
Except for a quarterback.
Because you're drafting quarterbacks and playing them a wide receiver.
Well, it's Bill Belichick's system. It's whatever you want to call it. It's Tom Brady making the guys around him better. That's for another day.
They win. It doesn't matter.
But it's in the NFL, there's consistency with getting the most out of guys and not having to give them $1 trillion contracts. Like, look what Kirk Cousins did in Minnesota this past year. He was by far the #1 free agent last year. Everybody wanted him. I remember we had many talks as Browns fans of wanting him before we had Baker. Turns out, at least from this moment in time, he doesn't look like the answer. He doesn't look like that missing piece.
He's $28 million annual salary, guaranteed $84 million.
And how much has he hamstrung the team from surrounding him with better talent.
I will tell you
Baltimore.
this. I hate Kirk Cousins' contract with a passion, and I hate what happened last year. But having said that, had we not gone out and got him last year, we'd be stuck with the free agent crop that was this year, which is not much better.
Look what happened with
Joe Flacco.
Look what happened with
Bridgewater.
Joe Flacco. Prime example right there. Baltimore gave him the huge contract a couple years ago, and
After
then
he had nothing to do with them winning the Super Bowl.
and then they had no money to give to anybody else,
Like
and
Andy
it destroyed.
But they were
the
still
team.
consistently good, even though they had no money to give them.
Because of their defense.
Yes.
Go on.
Yes, we're in salary cap hell this year because of Kirk Cousins' contract. We have $2 million right now to sign our rookie class, which means Trey Waynes is probably getting traded.
So I guess that's kind of the double-edged sword of things. Is in football you have to really scramble to make sure that
You're
hit
planning
certain
for
levels.
something. You're planning for the next 5 years while trying to not hamstring
Right.
yourself.
Whereas
for the next
baseball,
20.
you can go out and sign a Bryce Harper or Manny Machado, and it's barely a drop in your salary in your payroll. You can't even say salary cap because they don't have one.
Well, as long as you have an owner who's willing to pay it.
Which
That's it.
which will kind of hinder a lot of teams. I mean, just last week, Indians owner Paul Dolan came out and said, essentially,
Enjoy Lindor.
enjoy the guys we have while you can because they're going to trade them once they come up when their contracts come
And
due.
Cleveland has been historically prone to do this. The Cleveland Indians are the best farm system in Major League Baseball.
I
Hands
agree
down.
with that.
They get guys, they build them through their minor leagues, they bring them up, they play phenomenal, and then
Cy Young and they trade them.
yep.
They love that reset.
And the
button.
only
And
reason
they get to retire as a Yankee with 2 World Series rings.
And
the only reason
$1
Corey
trillion
Kluber is still in Cleveland is because he hates the limelight, and the money's not a big deal to him.
But
I
he'll be
think-
gone by the end of the trade deadline.
Yes.
I mark it right now.
So is Bauer.
I'm not trying to be negative. I'm not trying to be cynical, but the Indians will not win the Central. They will be sellers come the trade deadline.
How much of this? How much of
It
these?
is
They'll
March
probably
31st. They will be out of contention come trade deadline, and they will have a fire sale. Bauer's gone, Kluber's gone, Lindor may be gone.
Well, they have
because
Lindor
he's
for 3
under
more years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They may keep him because it still makes
through,
sense.
through arbitration.
How much of these contract talks have to do with the fact that as an NFL player, you are more recognized?
But listen to this.
So
though.
your endorsement deals are bigger as an NFL player. Actually, in all honesty,
There's
basketball is probably the
8,000
biggest endorsement.
baseball players and
Right,
12 NFL players.
right. And in all honesty, basketball is probably the most recognized sport in the world right now. Adam Seaver's done a
Because
fantastic
they
job.
play it in 6,000 countries.
Right. It's the easiest sport to pick up literally a ball and learn yourself. You
Yeah.
don't need anybody else. You need a ball and a hoop. Baseball, you need someone to throw you the ball. You need a glove. You need a bat. You need a football. You got to have somebody to throw it to.
There's
you.
plenty of
whatever.
Puerto Ricans play with milk cartons.
I can be honest. I haven't watched.
Yeah,
Haven't watched a whole lot of Major League.
But here's the thing.
Of basketball this year.
I
Me
only can
neither.
speak for myself, but I would much rather watch a preseason game between the Cardinals and the Jaguars than the NLCS. I do not care about baseball unless my team is represented in the postseason. I don't care. Same thing with the NBA.
Who won the World Series last year?
I feel like it was the Red Sox.
It was.
There you go.
Yeah.
But that's my
The fact that you got to think about that.
exactly.
Should tell
I
you
can,
enough.
I can probably
And
say
they're the
last
second
7
biggest.
Super Bowl
They're the
winners.
second biggest franchise in Major League Baseball.
Apparently, I did not gloat about this enough.
Not gonna lie, I was thinking Astros in my head.
That was 2 years ago. But to my point, obviously baseball has its niche in American sports and culture, or whatever, and it's got its fan base. But I feel like the NFL is so popular and so highly recognizable that it's only a matter of time before these contracts. I mean, you saw with Cousins and guys like that who are now demanding guaranteed money for a certain number of years or whatever.
He took less money. The Jets offered him more.
Well, I wouldn't go to the Jets either.
Who would?
Le'Veon
Bell.
Case in point,
Dumb.
I think he rented a BFI apartment.
Yeah, he's definitely he took less money to go to the Jets.
He took
It's all
less
about
money
the
to go-
statement.
Or you mean Le'Veon?
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
he would have made more money playing in Pittsburgh than he did by going into the Jets.
Yeah, but then he would have had to play in Pittsburgh.
and brush his teeth.
So
I think in a few years we'll find out why.
But anyway, so going back to it, now these contracts, not just MLB, we're kind of throwing them under the bus here, but the NBA is probably just as guilty. These contracts are getting so out of hand and so inflated that it's only a matter of time before your guys like who's an up and comer.
For
Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
I actually meant
Basketball player.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so we'll just say Baker Mayfield because he
Mahomes.
seems to kind of be the flavor of the week for this
Mahomes.
area anyway. Mahomes, sure. But, what's to say in 3 or 4 years when Baker's rookie contract expires, he goes, hey, give me $100 million or I do a Le'Veon Bell and I sit out. or someone's going to get it to him.
I think the Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown situation this last year really hurt the NFL when it comes to contract negotiations.
I think Antonio Brown swindled the NFL.
He did. Absolutely did.
He threw a tantrum.
Yeah.
He got exactly what he wanted.
Mario.
No, absolutely zero
Oakland
penalty.
swindled the Steelers out of that.
They gave him away for nothing. They got
because nobody else was giving him anything.
I mean,
Buffalo made an offer.
If you're Oakland, you're doing backflips. Like you have 3 first-round picks and a second-round pick that you've got to hang on to, and you still got one of the best receivers, if not the best receiver in the NFL right now, for nothing. You gave up a 3rd and a 5th, which that 5th-round pick is probably a throwaway pick, especially because Mike Mayock's making a pick. So, I mean, to your point, Antonio Brown took the NFL hostage, took the Steelers hostage for sure.
Yep.
And not only was he not penalized, but he got everything he wanted and more.
And Le'Veon Bell did the same thing.
It's clear that Brown does not care about rings. He doesn't care about winning. He doesn't care about anything other than
himself,
his bank account.
Himself and money.
Well, and I'm not going to be a hypocrite. That's why
I was going to say, isn't that kind of what we're all trying to do in life?
But it sets a bad precedent moving forward because now your high-profile guys, I don't want to just throw out receivers, but they're generally more of the diva type. So let's say Julio Jones in a couple years says, you know what, I'm a lot better than them and I'm making a lot less than them. Now all of a sudden you're setting off dominoes of everybody's thinking they're better than the next guy. And quarterbacks are probably the biggest beneficiaries of all this because whoever the next, I can't even imagine what Aaron Rodgers is going to make when his contract comes.
He's going to get the moon.
He just signed a new one.
Yeah.
Last year.
No, you're right.
Aaron Rodgers,
29 million?
$33 million annual salary, 103 guaranteed.
And that, to me, that still seems like he's underpaid given what's going on in other sports.
I just think it's crazy that some of these historically, let's not sugarcoat it. The Steelers are the best run franchise in the NFL.
Without a doubt.
Up until recently.
How do you know? The fact that you go through 3 head coaches in 40 years.
They need to go through another one.
But to see one player take the best run organization in football and completely
make it
wreck it is terrifying.
Unpopular opinion.
2 players.
Unpopular opinion. Good for him. If I could do that to my company and just run circles around him, I'd do it.
And come out looking great on the other end. Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
But, I think it's going to really tarnish the game of football that we know from a business standpoint. I don't think the rules and all that we talked about is in and of itself, but from a business standpoint, you're looking at a lockout in 2021. It's all been guaranteed.
The lockout's been guaranteed since the 5-minute lockout in 2011.
Yeah. I would say that part of it is the players have brought on themselves because the NFL Players Union is by far and away the most powerful sports union of all the major sports. They've I won't say they've gotten everything they've wanted.
They're going to wreck
certainly got a lot back.
Right.
The case in point, the rookie wage scale. The profit sharing and all that. It's really the scales have tipped in recent years. The owners are certainly not going to want to give up more money.
Your next lockout's all about guaranteed money.
Oh, without a doubt,
100%,
absolutely. And what's the salary cap in the NFL this year? It's like
195 million.
Okay, so almost $200 million. That's still a great amount of money.
That is less than
Mike Trout could buy 2. It could fund 2 NFL rosters.
Yeah, Mike Trout.
$430 million. Could fund 2 NFL rosters.
Yeah.
Boy, I hope he retires and just gets paid like Bobby Bonilla does every year.
If you look at it though, so Mike Trout's contract is for 12 years. His average per year, his average per year is going to be $35.5 million.
Which is what Aaron
Rodgers is at $33.5 million. So based off of years, it's not that different if you go by annual salary. It's just
that's true.
He's getting it for 12 years,
but his is fully guaranteed.
Correct. Well,
he's going to get every bit of that $430 million.
Yeah.
Well, let's not act like this is anything new, though, because Nick's kind of mentioned it several times. But Bobby Bonilla is on the Mets payroll until 2035. Has not played since 2001.
What, $1 million a year?
He gets $1.9 million, or $1.19 million, excuse me, every year on July 1st until 2035. Dude has not swung a bat since 2001. So he hasn't played for the Mets since 2000.
That means that his agent gets $110,000 a year.
Agent Hall of Fame is what it means. But it leads to another point, because I was kind of doing a little research on this earlier. The Mets intentionally structured it that way so that he could get all of his money. Then they fully knew it was going to last way until when he retired. But it lessened the burden financially on them up front. Or for the first couple of years, they say, hey, we'll give you this I think it ended up being like $29.8 million. So we'll call it, you get $30 million total, knowing you're not going to play with us for probably. I mean, I doubt they assumed it would be within a year.
I mean, we're long past the days of Magic Johnson signing a lifetime contract for $50 million with the Lakers.
I just for the record, any sponsors out there, I'm willing to sign a lifetime contract for $50 million.
Ditto.
I will provide my contract.
Boy, I hope you guys get.
He will tattoo your logo on his forehead for $50 million.
I will just market the hell out.
I'll
of it.
tattoo it on the inside of my lips.
No regrets.
No regrets.
But I again, to Andy's point, kudos to these guys that can get the money when they can.
Also,
I just think it's going to tip the balances.
Also, real quick, I mean, we do have to understand we're talking about a very select group of people as far as athletes go, because not everybody's getting $300 million. There's how many people that
Some of them are getting $400 million.
well,
I think we looked it up. Your average MLB salary is somewhere around like $4 million.
Almost about 5.
and there are also players who are ridiculously underpaid. Like, if I could name one person, would be Adam Thielen right now. He's playing on an undrafted free agent contract. That is absurd.
And he played at an MVP level.
Exactly. And there's also the other thing that I thought of is most of us are vehemently against college athletes getting paid.
100%.
So when they get to that next level,
Another topic, another time.
exactly. Another topic, another time.
Are we segueing?
No,
I'm all for it.
That is not a segue. Not today.
I'm just using that as a point of departure to sort of illustrate that once they get there, we might just be, freaking out over these huge numbers that are getting thrown that look good in a headline and get your attention.
But for every Adam Thielen that's criminally underpaid, you're going to have a guy like.
Where do you want me to start? Jimmy Garoppolo.
Well, he's a quarterback.
Who has done nothing.
Alex Smith is not going to play another down in the NFL.
You're only worth what somebody's going to pay you.
Alex Smith, guaranteed $55 million.
I'm
will
trying
probably
to think of
never.
an obnoxious receiver contract.
Andre Rison?
Is he alive still? I'm talking about relevant ones now.
Do you blame
Famer.
but do you blame him for getting that, or do you blame
I
the
was
team
just going to
for
say, where's the
agreeing to it?
fault lies? Do we hate the player or do we hate the game?
I guess it's kind of what side of the fence you're on. But
I mean,
if
I'm Alex Smith, I'm never touching a football again. I'm taking
You
my
probably aren't going to be able
$90
to.
million
You're gonna lose your
well, the
leg.
problem here
limping
is
away.
if you're Kirk
rolling
Cousins, you get your guaranteed money for X amount. Now, the second that Matt Stafford comes due or Andrew Luck comes due, and I know some of these guys have already had things reworked, but the next guy's going to want more than the previous guy, and so forth, and so forth. And it's every position. It's not just quarterback.
Well, that's what
so
you
when the
you
receiver
saw.
contracts come up. I mean,
That's what you saw with Beckham because he's going to renegotiate with Cleveland to get paid more than Antonio Brown.
He already does get paid more. He makes $21 million.
He's annually is 18 for Odell, 65 guaranteed.
here, I'll give you one, Andy. So, criminally underpaid, Rob Gronkowski. I don't care what he made, it wasn't enough.
He didn't spend a dime.
The absolute best tight end I've seen, say Tony Gonzalez. I mean, and the guy, like, I get it. There are certain guys that just transcend the amount that they're getting, but all it's doing is it's raising the median level for guys like a Algie Crumpler, for lack of a better one, but like a Jared Cook. Probably is going to get overpaid because...
Did he sign yet?
I don't think
There was
so.
talk about the Saints.
I think you're right.
He did.
That's
Did he sign officially? I know there was a lot of back and forth about it.
But it just, every position group, you're going to kind of raise that median income. And I get it. The salary cap increases, the rate of inflation, and so forth. And that's just how the economy goes. But eventually, you're going to run out of money for these top guys. And you're going to create situations where you're going to have 2, possibly 3 superstars on your team, and then just a bunch of guys.
See, the salary cap in the NFL is increasing every year.
It's increasing in every sport.
Yeah.
So are salaries.
The NHL did another increase this past year as well.
It's almost a competition between these players too to make. It's not even a competition as a skill set. It's a competition as a popularity standpoint and as I'm just making more money than you. You saw it with running backs last year. You saw it with wide receivers last year.
Jared Cook is with the Saints.
You see it this year with strong safeties or free safety. You got box safeties this year making as much money as receivers were making 3 years ago.
If you want to really freak out, look at the contracts that were signed by offensive linemen this year.
Oh, it's outrageous.
Who's the guy that signed with Oakland? Trey Brown? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Trent Brown.
Trent Brown, who's the highest paid offensive lineman in league history.
Until the next guy signs his deal.
But that tells you where the positional value is among organizations.
Yeah, but at the same time, they just got rid of Kalichi Osemele, who was a Pro Bowler and probably one of the better players on offense.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't have name recognition because he plays on the offensive line, but
And I'm sure there was an internal reason for that.
you get rid of
John Gruden.
So Jared Cook 2 years, $15 million with a $6 million signing bonus, guaranteed 8.
That seems reasonable.
He's 31.
That's not outrageous.
No,
I
he's
think
31.
that's
for his
fine,
production,
fair.
his age,
That's
his
not
position, that seems reasonable.
But I guarantee you could look at it. I mean, look at Travis Kelce. Is he still under his rookie deal?
Probably.
Yeah.
So criminally underpaid.
2015,
Regardless, you know,
14.
if he can even have
1989.
half of the production he did last year, criminally underpaid. Zach Ertz is probably another one.
That's the
Well, you
benefit
can't
of that
block that.
rookie contract.
But
So he's a free agent in 2020.
Okay, so he's
Kelsey, base salary, $645,000.
for the best receiving tight end in the game.
Travis
But
Kelce.
it's again, that's the benefit of your rookie wage scale. That's
Yep.
Sure.
where
I
it
mean, it's
comes in.
working,
It's,
but
it's doing what it's intended.
it allowed Kansas City to go out and build around that team.
Same thing with the Rams.
and then lose everybody.
And then lose everybody.
What defense?
Well, they do still have to dress some guys.
Yeah, they
be
took-
on the other side of the ball.
They took a defensive hole and made it bigger.
There was one other thing I was going to mention. Oh, so another thing that people don't really often talk about is the, I guess, really severe imbalance between NFL tenure and any other sport. So I think it's like you don't qualify as a vested veteran until after 3 seasons in the NFL, where you're considered, you sign up, you get your benefits and so forth. The average NFL career is 2.3 years.
That was my next question.
So literally the majority, or at least the average of NFL players, don't even play long enough to qualify for lifetime benefits. It is 100% the most dangerous sport out there. Granted, hockey's a very physical game.
I love hockey.
He really does. We're not going to open up that can of worms, but football obviously is a very physically intense sport. The careers are shortened by injury, by whatever you want to call it. So a lot of these guys, the lower third of your rosters, we'll call them, they're making still a good amount of money because they're probably still making hundreds of thousands or close to $1 million.
Like $480,000.
Yeah, so you're making $500,000 a year, but if your career only lasts 2 years, now you've got $1 million, but now you've got you're 26 years old.
That's why
you've
these
got
guys
back problems. And you have no
3-year
insurance.
NCAA scholarships and they go to school for free, so they have a career to fall back on when they don't make it. In the
Well,
NFL.
that's neat.
Another topic, another time.
But I just feel like we're heading toward the point of no return with sports contracts where, again, good for the players to get it while they can, but as a fan, it's unfortunate to see that these things are going to lead to.
It's super
stopping
weird that the
sport.
NBA seems to be the league that's doing the most right.
Well, that's because the NBA Players Union has taken the league hostage.
Right.
I don't care what anybody says. That
And you got
they
5
are
players on a
the-
team, so
Right. So I retract my statement about the NFL Players Union being the strongest. They are leaps and bounds behind the NBA, where one player can essentially dictate an entire team's moves.
LeBron James.
And not just LeBron. I mean, he's obviously one of the
No
bigger
longer
names
playing
about
this
it.
year.
Well,
why would
neither am
lie?
I. So I'm not going to make fun of him. But,
What's the point?
look at Golden State. Like, they've got 5 bona fide superstars in their starting 5. Like, why would I watch any game of West Coast basketball?
But Golden
when I
State
know they're
did
going to get to the finals.
They did it differently, though.
I
They
understand.
didn't go out and just offer people money. They
Okay,
actually built through the draft.
Which is great. That's awesome. That's the way you're supposed to do it.
It's
but
hard to
It's
do.
a lot different though in
Exactly.
They got
basketball.
lucky.
you've got 5 guys. You've got, 7 guys
They didn't
playing.
draft Kevin Durant.
He drafted them.
Yeah,
Yes.
just like he's drafting the Browns next year.
That was part of this story.
He's going to be a Nick.
You're a Nick.
Him and
But I don't know. I feel like contracts are getting a little out of hand, and I think the light at the end of the tunnel is a train called lockout.
You might know more about this because the NHL had a lockout and they canceled the whole season, didn't they?
Yeah,
Do you feel like they're better off having done that?
I think the NHL is in a great spot right now.
So it didn't kill them.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Nope. I think they're in a really, really good spot. I think popularity for the sport is growing leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
They're putting franchises in places where I mean, who would ever thought
Timbuktu.
who would ever thought like hockey in Nashville would be as
Vegas.
big as it is? Vegas is phenomenal. I told my wife, if we ever go to Vegas, my show is going to be a hockey game because they put on a huge performance before every game. I think the NHL is in a really,
And
really
you
great
see
spot.
players in the NHL that sign these contracts and they play for the same team
Sidney
for
Crosby.
20 years.
But I don't want to be that guy. But the level of popularity in NHL is peanuts compared to the NFL.
Sure. But
It's
I'm just going at
So, did anybody know there was a hockey lockout?
Like,
I did.
All 10 fans
I did.
just give up that year.
Ouch, that's mean.
I
You
would-
enjoyed yourself at the game. Come on.
Well, yeah. But this is not to say that I think there'll be an actual work stoppage. I don't think any games will be missed because there was 5 or 6 years
preseason
ago.
games?
That's the last thing they want.
Yeah,
They
that's,
canceled
they,
two
didn't miss
preseason.
any
It's
time.
gonna
Cost them billions.
I mean, I don't think
to not
Keanu
play.
Reeves is in any shape to play football again.
No.
Was he ever though?
That was a great
The
movie.
replacement.
I know, but
Excellent
was he
reference.
ever in
Thad Castle's available.
I believe he would fail a drug.
Blue Mountain State leaving Netflix tomorrow, April 1st. Make sure you watch
But,
it.
Again, I don't think there's a threat of work stoppage. I think all the games will be played. Maybe a preseason game or two gets sacrificed.
Oh, Jar.
But the money is, that's at the end of the day, that it's all about. The money's going to be misproportioned somewhere. So as a fan, it's depressing because, I just want to watch the games and enjoy it and not have to worry about all the crap that's going on in the back.
Just Pam.
Or don't.
Just Pam.
All right. So we've been talking about sports contracts from 10 grand to 100 grand, but now it's time to talk about the granddaddy of them all, the showcase of the immortals, WrestleMania.
Oh yeah, brother, what you gonna do?
Oh God. By far my favorite time of the year. I've watched wrestling since the heyday back in the early 90s, mid to 90s when everything was awesome and, we still believed it was real, but
What do you mean?
it's totally real.
Jesus.
It's just script.
Less real
Don't
now.
scare. What? It's scripted too?
You even scared me for a second.
Jeez.
Obviously,
Those
1
are
week
fake
from
ACLs they're
today.
tearing.
Yes, absolutely.
That's their third ACL.
Guys, don't try this at home.
Or do it.
Then, now, and forever.
Absolutely
One
try this at
from
home
today,
in front of your parents.
WrestleMania 30-something.
35.
There you go. 35.
They started the stage already.
Coming to you live from somewhere in America.
MetLife
MetLife
Stadium.
Stadium.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they started building the stage.
So,
What do you
yeah.
do if it's cold?
Wear coats.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Layer up.
I mean, it's New
Or it
Jersey.
rains.
Oh, it's New Jersey, so you don't have to worry about the cold. You got to worry about the trash burning in your porch.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Anyway.
So you mean the people?
Yeah. Anywho, so obviously with WrestleMania coming up, and we're all huge nerds here talking about sports, and wrestling is definitely a sport. I don't care what anybody
Nerdy sport,
says. That's fine. Gentlemen, thoughts? What are you looking forward to? What are you excited about? Do you really even pay attention anymore, or where do you stand with everything?
I don't pay attention as much as I used to. I still get like the updates on my phone. I still read about it. It's so hard to sit through a 3-hour show every Monday,
Especially when it's not.
and then another show.
Not just a 3-hour show,
On
but the 3-hour
Tuesday.
show every other night.
Yeah. But I am looking forward to see where they're going with this, the main event, the women's triple threat match.
Let's just have a little bit of context. I mean, it's kind of a big deal because it's the first, big event since, Roman Reigns came back after the, leukemia diagnosis. So, that in and of itself is pretty cool. Even if you don't really like him.
And he's gonna
Right, you're
lose.
allowed to hate him again and not have to
feel bad about it. Not that, we dislike him as a person. But,
I do. No.
it's just one of those characters that gets shoved down your throat. But, good for him, getting healthy and coming back because everybody likes feel-good story.
He's kind of like the Yankees
Unless you're
of
Brock
wrestling.
Lesnar.
Nobody really likes them, but they're so successful, you kind of just have to respect it. Granted, that success was 100% forced down your throat, but it is what it is. But
First women's main
yeah,
event.
I think that's awesome. Coming back from watching it, like I said, in the early to mid 90s when it was kind of at its peak, it certainly was not at its peak for women's participation and whatnot.
Not so
women's
Depends
respect
on who you
period.
ask.
Yeah,
Well, not wrestling. Other things.
we've all seen the days of the matches that are designed solely to humiliate and promote the sexuality of the female competitors.
You could say
Not to mention
the bra and panties match.
Well, not just those, but you had like your
Mud matches.
your paddle on a pole matches, all those nonsensical things that were
Live sex
kind of awesome in the
showcase.
day.
Oh yeah,
But
Edge and Lita. Oh god.
But not only has the focus gone to the correct way in promoting the women and so forth, but the actual in-ring product is just leaps and bounds now as ahead of where it ever was for female competitors. So, kudos to your Becky Lynch's, your Charlotte's, your Paige's. I know I'm missing one.
Yeah.
Your Sasha Banks's and Bailey's, who kind of paved the way in the here and now era. Obviously, your Trish Stratus's and your Lita's back in the day were really
There was something on your nose that I wanted to brush it off. Don't ever do that. Sorry, I'll never speak to you. It was bothering me.
We almost had a match right now.
Yeah.
Leave that in.
But anyway, for the women who kind of paved the way for the people now.
You mean for Ronda Rousey to come in? And
This doesn't happen without Ronda Rousey.
It does.
I guess it does.
Them main
Ronda
event
Rousey is
now.
the absolute worst thing that ever happened to wrestling.
Them main
Moving
eventing
on.
WrestleMania is only because of her.
I couldn't agree less. But anyway,
It never happened.
It absolutely would. I think that they're at a place where they understand the value of it. I mean, the Women's Royal Rumble this is now the second year they've had it. That was
they're doing another battle royale.
Yeah, I mean. So they're doing a lot more involving women in actual matches and competing. Yeah, and women's tag team titles and all that. So huge steps that they've taken in that regard. And that's
credit to
awesome.
Stephanie McMahon.
Agreed. She's been a major
she
push.
plays a villain on TV, but I mean, in real life, the things she does behind the scenes, the things she has done to push the women's evolution.
Steph and Hunter Triple H, her husband, Paul Levesque in real life. He's a huge proponent of pushing the women evolution forward and making sure that they are looked at as a respectable part of the roster and not just eye candy, which, a lot of them are. I don't want to discredit their looks and whatnot, but they're certainly
Ability
adept in
comes
the ring. Absolutely. And that's awesome. Like you look at, I mentioned ladies like Charlotte and Becky Lynch and Bayley, who've kind of paid their dues going up through NXT in the minor leagues, quote unquote, if you will. And they've made it to the precipice of the sport being involved, Becky and Charlotte, for example, in the main event of WrestleMania. I don't think 10 years ago we would ever even think that's even remotely possible to have a women's competition to headline the biggest pay-per-view.
I'd like to see them do something. Both Bella twins are now retired.
Thank God.
But hey, they took some big steps to start pushing the women's wrestling and the women's evolution as well. And I think they should do something to have them at WrestleMania as well.
Sure.
They're terrible in the ring.
I mean,
but still, they did a lot.
Nikki made a lot of leaps and
they'll
bounds.
probably end up as Hall of Famers at some point. Granted, I feel like anybody could be in the WWE Hall of Fame anymore, but I think there's a spot for
Hillbilly Jim.
Deserve it. I think there's a spot for Nikki and Brie as, for what they did. The Twin Magic was really cool back in the day when they first did that. I thought that
Before one had big boobs.
I feel like your main issue right now.
These people.
I feel like your issue right now is as good as it's going to be. As good as it's going to be to have a female main event. Are you going to care about it after watching 7 hours of WrestleMania before that?
That's no.
Because right now on the card, I believe there are 18 matches scheduled.
It's really that long?
Yeah,
It'll be that long.
They've cut a bunch already.
For as good as it's been from a business standpoint for WWE to develop their own network, which is a great idea. Get off pay-per-view. Credit to MLB with getting them started on doing that. But getting to control your own product, not being limited by pay-per-view, has done leaps and bounds for WWE. But at some point, you have to rein it in. You're going to have people that are going to watch this product on Saturday night with NXT. You're going to have people that are going to watch the independent shows that are all going to go on WrestleMania weekend because they're the biggest shows of the year for those people too. And then you're going to come in Sunday at 3 p.m. if you watch the pre-show.
Yeah.
3 or 4, yeah, something like
and
that.
start watching it until
At least midnight.
And some of us go to work the next day.
That's kind of what if you're buying tickets to go, that's kind of what you're expecting. How many people make like a vacation out of it? And do
Well, we're just talking about people watching on TV.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I went to the Royal
Even if
Rumble.
I go for 8 hours, I'm not sitting in a chair in MetLife Stadium for 8 hours, especially if it's cold.
Well, no, because when some people come in, you're going to stand up and cheer for them, and then you're going to sit back down.
I went to the
Gotta
Royal
mark out.
Rumble a couple years ago, and the Royal Rumble was on Sunday. We went to the Ring of Honor on Saturday. We went to the Rumble on Sunday, and then just so happened that Raw the next day was in Cleveland because Rumble was in Pittsburgh. We went to Raw on Monday. And was it a lot of wrestling?
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, it's hard to sit through the 3 hours of Raw on Monday
And the live
nights.
product is.
I just say, not to mention,
Nonsense.
watching it live is
It's a different
at
animal.
the event. It is not what it's cracked up to be, in my opinion. I think you miss a lot.
More credit to commentators.
Yeah.
Has the live product gotten worse?
I mean,
The storylines are kind of
the
hokey.
experience is what I'm talking about. It's just, it's
That's what I
weird to experience it live because you
With no
you
commentary.
lose the element of commentary. So you kind of lose some context as to
what's going on
things
in the
like
moment.
that. Yeah.
And when there are commercial breaks, you may not know it's a commercial break. All of a sudden, it's just a 2-minute rest hold.
yeah.
Because I've been to a house show in '98, and I was at a house show in.
Stop dating yourself, Andy.
I'm old. Welcome to the club. And I was at a house show in Youngstown. I don't remember, mid 2009 or something. And it was still a really good experience, better than what I would think would be on TV nowadays.
Well, let me preface: watching the house shows is still an entertaining experience. But
Sure.
I feel like the major shows, like your SmackDown and Raw, where you're like,
There's a lot of dead air.
yeah,
Because there's TV breaks.
exactly. Plus, you're losing the commentary. Whereas the house shows, the matches kind of speak for themselves.
That
I
makes
would
sense.
probably never go to another Raw or SmackDown live because we went, was it last year or the year before? They had a show in Canton. And I tell you what, man, it was one of the best shows I've ever been to. The way they interact with the fans too.
Yep.
You don't see that on television. I had a blast. And,
I mean, an
and
NXT show that
go
we
back
went to in front of 2,000 people.
Yeah.
In Warren, Ohio.
Oh, those-
was
Yeah, the NXT.
phenomenal.
I think NXT, Triple H really needs to get promoted and take over Raw and SmackDown because the NXT product
XFL's coming.
is
He just sold
is
$280 million
phenomenal.
worth of stock to fund it. So
I don't want to be the guy to say it, but I will. The product will not get better until Vince dies.
maybe the
He's-
XFL will take off and it'll take most of
It
his
doesn't
attention.
matter. As
Just
long as the
dark.
man is living, he will have his hands in it as
In
much as
every,
he
and he
can.
has his hands in everything.
And, you know, he certainly has every right to do that because he took it to where it is today. But, you know, it's just he's very stuck in the past as to what wrestling was, from the territory days to building the uber conglomerate that it is now. He has the market cornered.
Well,
Everything he does is with that in mind. And you know, I love the guy. I respect the heck out of him. He's made one of the most long running and important,
Longest running.
you know, entertainment vessels in history. But, you know, he's also not the most progressive of people. And
I mean, just today, he alienated, if you believe what the news stories say,
which you never can.
Chris Jericho is no longer affiliated with anything that has to do with WWE
Yep,
because he
he's
decided to go
blacklisted.
work for a different
And
company.
if that's true, that's sad because Chris Jericho is easily on the top 5 of probably anybody's list as the best wrestlers in terms of the physical ability to do
Well,
the
his,
job.
his character, he constantly
constantly
reinvented
reinvents
himself.
He's one of the most entertaining and charismatic people that's ever graced the ring. His skill set is phenomenal. He's always kept himself in good shape. He's a fantastic talker.
I really hope the AEW gives some competition to the WWE.
I do
They
and I
did.
don't because, you know, back like when we started watching it, it was back when WCW was in its heyday. And, you know, the competition certainly sparked better products for both. But I think, you know, we can go back and talk about all the other sports if you want to, but it's going to cause bigger names to jump ship and things like that. I mean, I've read rumblings of people from, you know, the tag team, the Revival to
Warrior Champions.
who conveniently
Who are
later
jobbing
on
to
were
an
put
NXT
on
act.
champions. But, you know, you hear the rumblings of these guys that are getting frustrated and you can't blame them because with WWE being the only show on the block.
I think there's
they do
so much talent. And that's what I think they tried to do with this WrestleMania card is they tried to get all of the talent onto this card.
which I get. It's the biggest show of the year. It's also
But
gonna be the
when
biggest
you have-
heavy of the year for
When
them.
you have a 12-minute match involving 16 people, you're not going to get to showcase that amount of talent. It just doesn't happen.
Well, that being said, obviously it is. It's something I look forward to every year. It's nostalgic, if anything, for me. You know, wrestling is not the coolest thing that people can enjoy anymore, but
It still draws
I like-
millions and millions of viewers.
you know, I like the
It's not
entertainment.
going anywhere.
I like the drama. I like the athleticism of it. It's cool to watch.
I mean, how many people sit at home and watch soap
It's a soap
operas?
opera.
I
That's
mean,
what it is.
it's a physical
It's
soap
a
opera.
reality
Physical
show,
soap
yeah.
opera.
more than anything.
Everybody's got their thing. Let
Yeah.
people enjoy it.
exactly,
Especially with this reality era that's been emerging the past couple of years.
and they have really kind
Very
of got rid of all the honky
interesting.
gimmicks and kind of shenanigans.
Blurring that-
but I like
But honestly, we're a lot of the draw when we started watching.
But
It's-
blurring that line and breaking the fourth wall every once in a while to reference something outside of the scripted
right,
area is
always entertaining.
Man, I miss the Attitude Era.
Oh, I loved it.
God.
Well, that
certain
being
things,
said,
some things are better now than they were, and
I just need better characters.
I
It
saw
needs
that
to be
they're-
about larger than life.
I saw they're planning on moving away from that PG rating a little bit too, and starting to get a little more risque.
Well, if Fox is going to,
I saw
that Fox money is going to be huge.
Yeah, well, I know Fox doesn't want them to be in the PG rating anymore,
heck no, not if
And-
you're going to dole out that kind of cash.
and they're pushing for them to do a little more exciting, risque.
Which is going to be
Kind of
interesting
stuff.
because Fox is not a premium cable network.
Not only that, what's more interesting is that it's SmackDown. And, not that one is the stepchild of the other, but
It is.
Raw is the flagship of WWE. It's been on the air since, the
93.
But are you
93.
arguably in the past 3 years, SmackDown's been the better product.
And I think that's been done intentionally, knowing that this deal was coming. So again, with Vince being kind of the way he is he really going to let SmackDown be the premier brand for his company? Or does that mean that Raw is going to kick itself up a couple notches in terms of the attitude, for lack of a better word, and the excitement and whatnot? So,
Competition breeding more competition.
yeah, and if internal competition is just as good as external, in my opinion, if you want to make Raw better, you have SmackDown be better, and vice versa, because you're going to have people. Let's be honest, I'm not going to. It's exhausting to try to watch 6 hours of wrestling in 2 days.
I can't do it.
It's almost physically impossible with being an adult and having a life.
Especially live. I mean, DVR is a little different. And you fast
Yeah,
forward, fast forward, fast
sure.
forward, fast forward. I mean, when I DVR, I maybe watch an hour of the whole show just because I fast forward through matches and different things like that.
But it's a lot, and I guess that's the other side of the coin. Is if you are having competition between yourself, you're ultimately going to force people to choose. Maybe they only want to watch one night of wrestling a week. They choose Raw over SmackDown, or vice versa. So, but I think it's a good time, for people that enjoy wrestling. It's a weird, almost transitory time because you're seeing guys like John Cena kind of step out of the limelight to pave the way for. I don't want to say Daniel Bryan because he's kind of been around the block a while, but like your Randy Ortons are kind of fading into the distance.
So you have guys like Ricochet and House.
Exactly.
Not people that are
Aleister Black,
your typical
big guys,
big giant wrestler.
behemoths. Yeah, you're gone, or well, not gone are the days, but going are the days where your Brock Lesnar's and your Batistas.
hopefully Brock Lesnar
Names.
goes.
Yeah.
he's not
Nice.
going anywhere.
Yeah, he'll be around forever.
He's not even going to lose the belt.
cockroach.
He's going to lose his UFC belt.
That's terrible.
So
Having
having
UFC.
having said all that, just to go back to the point where you opened with the women's division being sort of coming to a peak at this WrestleMania moment, how much pressure is it on them to get that right?
Huge.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
But I feel like
Huge.
every year they've given them more and more responsibility, and they've been
Considering
leaps and
the
bounds
talent,
above where the
For
expectations
most
have been.
part, they've handled it pretty well. Watching that first Royal Rumble event, there were some spots that were pretty kind of iffy.
But
But you're not putting this match up. You're putting your two most talented workers in the company.
But it's also the
in this match.
biggest draw of the biggest pay-per-view of the year.
Right.
So, God love them. I hope that they, knock it out of the park, but we'll wait and see. I have all the confidence in the world. I hope they do it. It's a lot of pressure. It's going to be a lot of nerves and a lot of pride in the ring. So I hope it's going to be great.
Do you agree with the rumors that this is going to lead into a horsewoman versus horsewoman scenario for the next 6 months?
Sure.
If you end the
gotta
event
do
with sold
something.
on all 4 WWE horsewomen and then the 4
I'd be
MMA
for it.
horsewomen.
And I don't care about the MMA chicks.
Ronda,
I think Ronda
reportedly
Rousey's
taking time
terrible.
off after Mania anyway.
I
So
apologize for calling them chicks. I just put myself back in the Attitude Era.
Good job, John.
Respect to the females, but
Good job, John.
no, it's. I think if they do that'd be something that'd be entertaining. As long as they've got a plan for them instead of just like.
Ending it with gold on.
Here's my point on it. I don't want this to be done for the wrong reasons. Like, I don't want them to put the women's match as the main event just so they can say they had a women's match be the main event. I want them to do it the right way and, show these women for the athleticism and the ability they have in the ring to do what it is that they're doing. Again, we're leaps and bounds ahead of where we were a decade and a half ago with how they're perceived and how they're promoted and things like that. So I'm confident that they'll be able to execute in that level, and whatever they decide to do beyond that, I look forward to it. So,
Well, that'll be this Sunday. Well, Upcoming Sunday was
April
April 7th. Pre-show starts at 3, 4, whatever. Pull up a chair.
When you turn it on.
That's WrestleMania 32 coming
Pull up a chair,
in
then use it on your.
Are we
35.
Are we billing Vince for this free promo?
Absolutely. WWE. It's on the WWE network. $9.99. So we've hit on some things as a group. What we decided to do is do a little segment, or a little shootout segment. Each person's going to talk about a topic that they picked on their own. And I think we're going to start off with Nick. Nick, go ahead and take it away.
Well, there was big news this week in the
How
world.
big, Nick?
$50 million big.
Okay.
In the world of esports,
So not as big as Mike Trout.
Comcast is going to spend $50 million to build an esports arena in Philadelphia.
What is esports?
Esports is electronic sports. It's things that you watch online, play online, Call of Duty, Halo, Overwatch,
Laser tag.
League of Legends. If there was a laser tag
Freeze
game,
tag.
yeah, it could be something like that. So Comcast is sponsoring the Philadelphia Fusion. They're an Overwatch team. Philadelphia Fusion are getting a $50 million sports complex built in the arena park of Philadelphia. So you are going to have the Eagles across the street from the Phillies, across the street from the Flyers, and the 76ers across the street from the Philadelphia Fusion.
So they can get cheesesteaks.
We did it.
The $50 million arena is going to seat 3,500 people. It's going to have all the team offices in it. It's going to have the team training facilities in it. You are going to have other events here. You're going to have concerts being played. You're going to have whatever they call them, TED Talks or something like that, going on at the same time. Does it, and as an opinion, I mean, you can't say that this doesn't legitimize the sport because these people have invested. It's just like any other sport. They have invested this much time and effort to be at the pinnacle where they are. They have practiced. They have signed contracts. Last year you had Ninja on the cover of Sports Illustrated, first Twitch streamer on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Your personal opinion on him aside.
That cover to that magazine is cool.
What do you guys think about the fact that esports are getting the kind of recognition that they've been striving for the past decade or so?
So I feel like I'm a perfect person to talk about this. Don't play video games. Like I'll just come out and say I'm not a quote unquote gamer. I still dust off the old ESPN NFL 2K5 from time to time when I win my football fix. But you know what? I actually think it's kind of cool. You know, I may not agree with absolutely everything going on with it, but I think it's cool that people who genuinely like this and have a passion for this kind of thing are getting the recognition and things like that. You know, what have we done all here today? We've all sat here and talked about what our passions are involving sports and whatnot. So it's just another way for people to kind of have their own spotlight on their thing. Again, I'm not going to go buy tickets to these people and watch them do things. It's like, I'm not that kind of person, but you know, kudos to them for getting that opportunity. You know, if I were to, I'd be a hypocrite if I said that I wouldn't be upset if someone said that something that I like or enjoy, such as wrestling or football or whatever, was trivial or dumb. Well, great. That's your opinion, but it doesn't lessen my enjoyment of it. So, you know, whether it's GoldenEye for the N64 or these games that you guys play now on your much more advanced and graphically pleasing consoles, that's awesome. I think it's cool. You know, it doesn't have to appeal to me directly to be something that is going to push the sport of it forward. You mentioned that the facility is going to be used for other things, concerts,
NFL draft, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so you know, it's another way for Philadelphia as kind of being the torchbearer for this first thing to kind of gain revenue, gain events. You know, it's going to help the economy and things like that. If you boil it down to, if you want to call, you know, gaming has greatly developed over the years to the point where it's got more of or I guess less of a cult following and more of a mass following. You have tournaments for pretty much every game in existence. So whether you are a contributor or actually play these things, it doesn't matter. The fact is these things are growing, and I think it's cool.
Let's go to the other end now. Andy, you were like ranked, weren't you, with Call of Duty at one point?
Not in a competitive sense.
I know you have your own YouTube channel where you have streamed playing video games. What's the name of your channel?
It's just my Xbox gamer tag, XIX Element XIX. It has not been updated in 5 years.
That's okay. There's still content on there. You did play
Yes.
a lot of video games. You still are big in gaming.
Yes.
What do you think?
It's fantastic because it's reached a point where it's starting to get more attention than I think most people ever thought possible. Because I mean, this all started with people streaming out of their bedrooms, right? And organizing tournaments on their own. And I think people are going to find this entertaining because not just for the gameplay itself, but some of these players are really hilarious and funny characters.
Yeah, some of the personalities are very dominant.
One of the teams that is the most popular and competitive scene that I don't know if people really heard of, but it's been Optic Gaming for a really long time. Whatever your feelings are about them aside, they've had some pretty funny characters on their rosters originally with like Nate Shot and Scumpy. So I think if people give it a chance, you're going to find some people that you might actually find entertaining, and then follow them on their own personal like Twitch channels and stuff. So
I know
it's a whole new world.
I know every now and then I'll see Counter-Strike being played on TBS.
That's a big one.
I can't help but find myself get wrapped in and watch it.
Overwatch League was just broadcast on TBS this year, so we're going into season 2, and we'll see what happens.
There are some streamers that I've watched, and I get roped in. Darkness 429, I watch him. The Pool Shark, I've watched them. Rainbow Six Siege, when those guys play that, I can't help but I get lost in watching.
I think the older you get, the more you associate with streaming, because when you start to get to the point in your life where you have a 40-hour-a-week job, you have kids, you have families, you don't have time to dedicate to the games that you want to dedicate to. So it becomes a point where I can't play this game, but I can watch someone else play it, and some people get just as much enjoyment out of that.
And I have a hard time seeing people invest the money into this if they don't see the return. Like, I'm sure they've done their research to try to figure out, hey, if we invest $55 million,
the return will be X.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's interesting. I think it's cool. I think it'll be exciting to see where it goes.
It sucks it's in Philly, but
I think another part of it,
cheese steaks.
I do think another part of it, from not to get too heavy on the topic, but for the longest time, gaming was kind of considered for nerds or for dorks, and kind of like the get out of your mom's basement mentality. So I just think it's cool that we're finally realizing that these things are of great enjoyment to people. And again, it may not be my thing or your thing or whatever, but it's not for me to say that it's not something that you should invest in fully. So it's cool that we're encouraging people to really enjoy the things that make them who they are. It's, again, I'm not a gamer. I don't pick up.
I mean, everyone's got their own niche.
Exactly. They've got their thing, and it's cool that it's become so big and so popular that they can now, it's no longer a badge of whatever. It's almost a badge of honor that people can wear. Yeah. It's cool. It's definitely becoming more mainstream. So more people are gaining the confidence to come out and embrace it.
From an outsider's perspective, for what you just said, that means that what they're doing is working because they want it to be attractive to everybody. They want everybody to be included. So the fact that you see it in that light from a non-gamer's perspective means that what they're doing is right, is what they're supposed to be doing.
Sweet. And moving on from one person's passions of video games to my passion.
So much passion.
So much passion.
Whiskey.
The quest for the cup.
Whiskey?
Fruit. I do love my whiskey. I do love my bourbons, but the NHL
playoff hockey is the best thing on TV.
NHL is hockey.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. There's about a week left. Most teams have 4 games left. And it has been an awesome season. A little bit of facts.
Very up and down season. A lot of teams.
There have been. It is so close right now.
That were in it last year.
A lot of teams have won, and some others have lost.
Yes. So only 7 teams have won both the President's Trophy. So the President's Trophy goes to the team in the NHL who has the most regular season points. So only 7 teams have won the President's Trophy and the Stanley Cup Finals. So the Tampa Bay Lightning this year have already clinched the President's Trophy. The next team behind them, the Boston Bruins, are 19 points behind them.
And that's
Tampa Bay,
surmountable?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. They've already clinched.
Interesting.
Tampa Bay has played phenomenal hockey this year. They've played extremely unselfish hockey. And They actually have a chance this year to break the record for most wins all time. The 95-96
From
Detroit
a franchise standpoint or in the league itself?
At league standpoint.
league.
Wow.
So in the history of the NHL, the most wins by a team was 62 by the 95-96 Detroit Red
How many
Wings.
games? 82 games?
82.
Okay.
So
62 and 20 is pretty darn good.
yeah. So right now
We got fast, too.
the Tampa Bay. Well, that's points. That's a whole different thing. But they actually have a chance to surpass the Red Wings if they win out. They've got 4 games left. If they win their last 4 games, they're going to surpass the Detroit Red Wings with 63 wins.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's actually really exciting. They've had some really, really good play. Who's their goalie? Andre Andre Vasilevsky, Steven Stamkos, and they've played some outrageous hockey this year. The playoffs are so tight right now. I'm forgetting about someone. Who's their? You guys don't know.
Nope.
You guys have no idea.
That's okay.
Nikita Kucherov, that's his name.
Yes, the Russian.
Yes, he's leading the league in points with 121, and he's probably going to win the Hart Trophy.
Like that the MVP.
Yeah, the Hart Trophy is the MVP.
Bret Hart Trophy. The Hart Foundation.
So going into the Stanley Cup playoffs this year, in the Eastern Conference, you've got the Washington Capitals who have already clinched. They're the defending Cup champs. You got the Islanders, President's Trophy winner, Tampa Bay Lightning, Boston Bruins. They've already clinched a playoff spot. Toronto needs one more point to clinch. I cannot say one more point
to clinch.
to clinch.
So we just did. In your opinion.
Yeah.
What are your predictions?
Oh boy. In the East, I mean, Washington's got a solid team. I mean, they didn't lose anybody. They brought everybody back from last year. They actually added Carl Hagelin. I mean, I'm a Pens fan, so
But realistic hope. Not hope because you want to make it.
I mean, you've got Tampa Bay, who's just been so strong all year. Their goaltending's been really good. Nikita Kucherov has been really good. I mean, I hate to say it, but I think it might end up being Tampa Bay. In the West is a little different. It's so tight in the West that I mean, I really have no idea who's gonna end up coming out of there. Everybody's really, really, really close in points. Ottawa has played really well, but I mean, no one really expected them to lead the league in wins in the West. So it'll be definitely interesting to see how it all plays out. But I love playoff hockey. I'm excited for playoff hockey. Go Pens.
Compared to last year, how has Vegas done?
They're back in the playoffs.
So they're pretty much on point.
Yeah,
Which is awesome. That was a cool storyline.
They did a really good job with their upper management through the expansion draft. The league is really strong. There are some really, really good players throughout the whole league. So the expansion draft went really well for them. They kind of came out of nowhere. No one really expected them to do as well. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, they backed it up again this year. Their goaltending, Marc-Andre Fleury, a former Penguin, has just been lights out. I think he's second in the league with wins. When you have that kind of stuff, good goaltending goes a really long way.
It's hard to lose when you stop the puck more than you allow it.
Right?
Exactly. That's what it's about. I was actually on Reddit the other day, and people seem to be talking up Tampa Bay like they're going to be the ones to watch out for.
Yeah, Tampa Bay is really strong. Like I said, they've had the Vezina Trophy candidate and their goalie Vasilevsky. Steven Stamkos has been a solid guy his entire career. And again, when we talked about contracts earlier, Steven Stamkos has played his entire career in Tampa Bay.
And we touched on it before with the NFL and the parity that they offer, but I think hockey does it even better because I feel like every year somebody else is either in contention for or winning.
The Penguins are the first team since the salary cap era, 97-98 Detroit Red Wings to win the Stanley Cup back-to-back. So it hasn't been done too often.
I would like that stat to remain the same because as an outsider, I'm already sick of the Capitals.
Yeah, I'm not a big, being a Penguins fan, I'm really not a big Washington Capitals fan at all.
I can't imagine why anybody would want to be a Capitals fan, that is, other than those people that live there.
Okay, so changing gears a little bit. My talking point is the possible end of the career for one Conor McGregor from UFC. If you believe what all the reports that are out there, he kind of just faded into the night and called it a career. Now, granted, there are some mitigating circumstances that are being investigated regarding some possible domestic abuse and whatnot. So that not being
he was just
subject
arrested too. For
so from a legal standpoint, notwithstanding,
Is that the reason he's stepping away?
you know, what I've heard a lot of is the fact that he feels like he's getting too big for the sport. You could argue that he's probably been the biggest draw the UFC's seen in a long time. Probably the biggest name out there. You could probably say that on the street, and most people who don't even watch the sport would know at least who he was. My personal belief is that he will be possibly even make an appearance at WrestleMania this weekend, 1 week from today. I think it's all but written in the stars that he will be involved in the WWE in some capacity in the near future. I'm not saying that's good or bad or indifferent. I'm just thinking that's what's going to happen. Sort of like how Ronda Rousey made a seamless transition, and to her credit, has really improved upon her ring work. I think from a natural charisma and talking ability, you don't get much better than Conor McGregor. He's definitely a natural showman. He is a talker. He certainly has the athleticism to do it. He showed his versatility in that boxing match he had with Floyd Mayweather, where he surprisingly went the entire, all 12 rounds of the thing. No, he didn't. I apologize. But, he definitely held his own. Like, he gassed himself with kind of the way he approached it. But kudos to him for taking the step and having the guts to even step out of the octagon and do it. So I think it's a foregone conclusion that he's eventually going to transition to WWE. Vince is not afraid to make a splash with signing somebody like that. So I actually think that'd be kind of cool. Wondering what your guys' thoughts are on that.
I think he's the worst thing to ever happen to the sport.
Which sport?
Why?
Granted, while his showmanship is there, he has brought into the light the pay scale. We've been talking about pay scale on a lot of this contract.
True.
You have fighters that are out there making $100,000 for a fight, and after they're paying $40,000 for their camp, they're clearing, and taxes, you're clearing like $30,000 for whatever 12 weeks of your life while you're preparing for this fight and making this fight. That's not a lot of money. You have somebody like Conor McGregor who's coming in, and because he can talk that talk and walk that walk, is forcing these smaller fighters to not get paid. He's getting paid $50 million, but he's not opening the doors for any of these other fighters to get paid that amount of money. If he were to somehow transition himself, I get that the UFC has kind of handicapped themselves with the sponsorship deals with Reebok and stuff like that, but
Sounds
the way
like a UFC problem.
the way Conor McGregor has gone about it, it's a case of the squeaky wheel getting the grease. He's been the loudest and the most vocal, and he's gotten the attention because of that. He hasn't gotten the attention because of his fighting ability.
And obviously, we'd be hypocritical to laud him for that, because we just kind of buried Antonio Brown a few segments earlier on doing the same thing. But it's a different sport. Yeah, I mean, he's in there by himself.
I mean, you have someone like Demetrius Johnson, who you could argue was pound for pound the best fighter in the world, but he was fighting at 155 and no one was watching it. 125. But he had 12 title defenses in a row. And it's part of an unprecedented trade to go to ONE FC because he was sick of playing the UFC's games. He didn't go out in the media. He didn't go out and do press tours. He didn't go out and do these things that you see McGregor doing.
So what you're saying is he didn't promote himself?
From a standpoint of, but he shouldn't have had to. The UFC should have been doing that before.
The UFC should. That's
Conor McGregor got paid $50 million and threw a dolly through a bus window.
Well, the UFC will promote what they feel is going to get them the biggest rate of return, which in this case is Conor McGregor.
If you're going out and selling fights, you're going to make the money. I mean, if Demetrius Johnson, for all his credit, is a great fighter. He's been, probably was up
He's in
until
that pound for pound discussion.
Absolutely. But nobody cared. And that's maybe not his fault. Maybe that's the UFC's fault for not saying, hey, this guy's really good. You should check him out. You've got Conor McGregor out there, throwing dollies through buses and MFing people and being brash and promoting himself. And you've got, Demetrius Johnson headlining a card getting we'll just, make up numbers, getting 10 people to watch. And then you say, hey, Conor McGregor's headlining the fight. You've got every Tom, Dick, and Harry going, I know who that is. I'm going to pay the $60 to watch him.
And that's exactly why I feel his future is all but guaranteed in the squared circle of WWE.
Depends on what comes out of these allegations coming out of Ireland.
I don't think that would scare Vince away from him. Unless he's serious, looking at some serious jail time. He's more than likely going to be transitioning to the next level of sports entertainment, which is more entertainment than sport.
How long has it been since his last match in the Octagon?
The fall, December? November, December?
It's been a few months. Okay.
Call it 6 months.
So having been, as somebody who doesn't pay attention a lot to mixed martial arts and UFC, I didn't know that he actually had a fight recently. I thought his last fight was pre-Mayweather. So I think that might tell you a little bit something about what his status currently is, other than that I did know about the allegations, but I didn't know he had a fight.
The UFC has an oversaturation problem. They try to put on too many events.
There are an awful lot.
With too many fighters, and don't give anyone the limelight that they deserve. You look at guys like Anderson Silva, who fought for a decade to become a household name.
Well, I think
Dana hated him, though.
I think with the UFC, and it's kind of a weird time for them, but they've historically focused on the fight, not the fighters. So
that ESPN deal,
and that's what I think
might change this.
I think I'm not necessarily saying that Conor's the reason, but I think they're going more toward the hype and the promotional side of things from who's competing rather than what they're competing in, i.e. the match is secondary to who's actually fighting.
Can't argue with that.
Y'all good? I think that about wraps up my segment. Thank you.
Now on to what is up and coming. The NFL season is nearly upon us. The draft is the official start of the NFL season.
No, not at all.
It is for us.
No.
We're talking about free agency.
The league just opened, what? 3 weeks ago? 4 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And
New calendar year.
so obviously with doing that comes trades, free agency, and we can talk about who made the biggest splash, who didn't make a splash at all, who bettered themselves, who, made themselves worse. But, just looking at some of the bigger moves, I think maybe the biggest one was the Jacksonville Jaguars signing Nick Foles.
Which made them no better than they are now.
To what, $88 million? Something to that effect?
Yeah.
Is that the kind of move that pushes them into, playoff and Super Bowl contention? Or was 2017 an anomaly?
I'm starting to lean towards anomaly.
I think they overachieved and they didn't do what they needed to do to reload, so to speak. And I'm not saying their window is closed. I tend to lean toward what Andy said, where it's more a flash in the pan. And I like Nick Foles. Obviously he did some great things for Philly when he had to step in. Good for him for getting a starting job and kind of, it is kind of a prove it deal still because, he's been around for a while and not really done a whole lot from a starting perspective. But, I'm excited to see what he can do in Jacksonville. I worry about the pieces around him outside of the running game. The skill positions are pretty weak.
To that point, this Jaguars team has 2018 Vikings written all over it because they just got the quarterback. Skill positions are questionable at best because that was the year that we had. It was last year we had Dalvin Cook coming back off injury. Like, who's he going to throw to? And is he going to get protected?
Mercedes Lewis, who was like the only offensive player on Jacksonville's team, he's not even there anymore. They lost Robinson and Hearns last year. Outside of Leonard Fournette, their offense is a giant question mark. I like Nick Foles. I think he's good, but I don't know that he really has the ability to make people around him better. I think he was in a perfect situation in Philadelphia where there was a lot of talent around him from a skill position perspective. Got a good defense, so. The time will tell, obviously, but I just don't know that he's going to be the difference maker that they think he's going to be.
So going along with, moves and stuff, and this wasn't necessarily a free agency move, but, we'll talk about the Browns just because at least 3 of us here are homers. Let's what do you think that they did to, silence the doubters, because we've had a lot of people talking about them, and even before the Odell trade, everybody was on the Baker bandwagon, and They signed Kareem Hunt,
Did they silence anyone yet?
No, on paper. It's one of those, Jim Harbaugh said or John Harbaugh said, yesterday, 2 days ago, they're the most talented division in the division.
They are. I think hands down.
On paper.
Absolutely. Nothing's been done yet.
Buyer beware.
But with, Pittsburgh losing Bell and Brown, that's a big kick in the nuts right there.
Baltimore losing everything else.
Yeah,
they didn't have much.
Cincinnati is just a joke anymore.
Yeah.
Are they even a football team?
Technically, yes.
They have a redheaded quarterback.
If there's a team that can survive losing a star wide receiver and a running back, it's Pittsburgh. They can still do it.
I did a piece on the Voices of Reason Facebook page, and I am probably one of the biggest Brown fan you'll ever meet, but I'm also a realist, and I love everything they've done. I think John Dorsey coming in is the best move they've done since they've been back. However, this is all fine and good, but it's all going to come down to what the product on the field is.
I have a little thing here. It has the Browns roster on April 1st of 2017.
So almost a calendar year.
So all the major positions. Yeah, 2017. And that's when
he started.
Yep. So at quarterback, you had Cody Kessler, Brock Osweiler, and Kevin Hogan. At running back,
none of which are on the team.
Also, none of which had ever won a game.
You have Isaiah Correll and Duke Johnson.
One of which is on the team.
You have Corey Coleman, Kenny Britt, Rashard Higgins, and Louis Ricardo. Ricardo Lewis?
Yeah.
Oh, it's on here backwards.
Shame on that paper.
Interesting. And then,
to be fair, that's how well
everybody. People would have believed you that was a guy on the
team. And at tight end, you had Gary Barnage and Randall Teffler.
So what you're saying is they had nobody on the team.
So here's who they have now.
That was a 1-15 year.
So you decide who you're going to take. You got Baker Mayfield. You have Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and Duke Johnson. You have Odell Beckham Jr. You have Antonio Callaway. You have Jarvis Landry.
Myles Garrett.
David Njoku. Demetrius Randall.
Rashard Higgins. And Demetrius Randall and David Njoku.
I believe Ricardo Lewis is still somewhere.
You mean Louis Ricardo?
Yes.
So.
Him too.
No, like I said, on paper, the moves look great. The roster has certainly put some people on notice and caught the attention of the national media. And that's awesome, but it can also be dangerous because the last time this team had expectations was 2008.
Which you touched on in your piece.
The wheels just completely fell off that season. Granted, it's not the same
the year they should have
leadership. It's vastly different. However, this is a team that is used to playing at a 4-12, 5-11 level. This is a team that is used to playing at 1 o'clock on every Sunday because no one in the nation outside of the 216 area code cared about them. This is a team that has, for the better part of 20 years, had zero expectations. So now that they have the weight of the nation on their backs, I hope, and again, as a Browns fan, I really hope that they can handle that and make the product on the field turn into wins and potentially playoffs and whatnot. But, it's a very cautious optimism. I think that we need to realize that this is the first year of hopefully a long stretch of what's to come.
New head coach,
first time head coach in Freddie Kitchens.
That's the wild card.
Keep in mind, he didn't even start last year as the offensive coordinator. He was the running backs coach. So he went essentially from running backs coach to head coach in less than a year.
That's wild.
Given the circumstances.
And knock on wood, anything happen to Baker Mayfield.
Season's 10.
Who's your quarterback?
Drew Stanton is your backup, which he's more so a coach on the field. And I like that quality about him. However, if you need him for a series, a quarter, maybe even a game, I'm okay with that. But if it's an extended kind of thing where he has to start 4 or 5 games, I can promise you Dorsey's going to get on the phone and get somebody else.
So do they look for free agency? There's not much left in free agency.
Sam Bradford's still available.
Do you?
You know what? Honestly, at this point, I think you roll the dice.
Do you try to draft somebody late in the draft? A young guy, maybe you can throw rounds.
But honestly, obviously, Baker's your future. Anything to deter snaps, attention, development, anything from him would be a waste of time. I think that you kind of go into the season with Baker and Drew and maybe a late round draft pick as your quarterback room. If the situation arises, knock on wood, it never does. But if something happens where Baker's going to miss extended time, at that point, you probably look at your options, maybe a trade.
They could always call my boy.
Austin Appleby.
Yeah. Give him a call.
Do it.
But, they do have a lot of draft capital. They've got several, I think they have 3 5th-round picks and maybe a couple 6th and 7th. So John Dorsey's he's really good at finding those hidden gems late in the draft. Hope maybe he can find a developmental guy, to kind of help bridge that. But I honestly think that it's Baker or bust. And he's definitely got the weapons around him now. Odell's not only the biggest star, but the biggest talent that the Browns have had on the offensive side of the ball in probably since Bernie Kosar. And obviously this is probably the biggest star in Cleveland since LeBron. He fills the void of superstar in the city. So that's going to pretty much mandate the NFL give them primetime games, at least to start. And, pairing him with Jarvis, I think that moves Jarvis into a more natural number 2 role, which is probably where he's better suited.
Both played together for 4 years.
Best friends.
Exactly.
And the wide receiver coach they had at LSU
is going to be, is Adam. Sorry, I can't remember his name, but their receivers coach at LSU is with the Browns on their staff. So there's familiarity.
Did you know those guys used to go into fields and catch rabbits as part of their conditioning?
That's cool though.
Actual rabbits. Chasing rabbits in a grass field in Louisiana as part of their conditioning. And catching them.
That's good. Travis Benjamin used to do that, but he didn't do anything of relevance in the NFL. So rest in peace his career. But the other thing is, with a lot of egos comes a lot of potential squabbles. Let's say Baker favors going to Landry more often. Is Odell going to be fine with that? Vice versa. Is Landry going to be okay playing second fiddle to Odell, even though they are friends and former teammates and all that? There's a lot of wild cards. So I'm hopeful. I'm cautious, but I'm really excited for what's going on.
Andy, you're a Vikings fan. What's it like to have bandwagon fans? Because we're not used to this.
What's it like to win?
Well, to the first point, to have bandwagon fans is kind of exciting because it means you're doing shit.
Like, what do we do?
And then to the second point, what it's like to win is a double-edged sword, because when you lose, it hurts just as bad.
Well, we're so used to it.
Well, at least it doesn't hurt worse because we're used to that.
I can tell you this from having, you guys have had national media attention for all the wrong reasons for a very long time.
Johnny Manziel.
To have it for good reasons, I can tell you
it's pretty dope
to enjoy it, because you don't know how long it's going to last. Because we had a good run with Adrian Peterson for like the first 6, 7, 8 years of his career, and we won some division titles.
that switched.
And excellent joke. It got bad.
No, it's
and then we got Mike Zimmer. Everything turned around. We're in the playoffs now. But last year really, really stunk. So enjoy it while you're good. And
so, do you have any advice for us to deal with these bandwagon fans that are going to
don't get too excited?
That depends. Do you
let it come to action?
No, us. Like if we see a bandwagon fan, what are we supposed to do?
Embrace it.
Say hi.
Would you rather have the biggest fan base in the country, or
we already do, but now
have it to yourself?
It just means more people like him. Who gives you?
If I see a person with a Tim Couch jersey on, I will respect him.
Okay. What if it's Tim Couch?
Yeah, what if it is Tim Couch?
I don't know. Tim Couch
might be the only one that still owns one.
So let's just.
I'm gonna pull out my Brady Quinn jersey.
Let's just segue away from teams real quick, and before we go on to the next topic. So, is there any one? Everybody go around and say one free agency move that you really liked or hated?
I'm going to go last because I have a somewhat bold prediction to make.
Free agency move that we liked.
I'll go first.
Liked, hated, indifferent to who pick a team that you think made themselves better or worse.
My favorite dark horse free agency signing this offseason so far has been Devin Funchess to the Colts, because that pairs T.Y. Hilton with a legitimate pass catcher. So maybe people don't believe that, but he did very fine in Carolina. I think that's going to open up that offense even more. So that was a great
terrible
signing.
quarterback in Carolina.
Terrible offense in Carolina.
Basically the worst team ever. And anyone who cheers for them, like Brian Satina, is a terrible person.
Except for the Jets.
Yeah, the Jets. Boy.
How do you feel about the Jets, Ryan?
I don't like the Jets.
Nick, what's your favorite move?
I'm going to say a lot of people talked about Odell, but I think Olivier Vernon coming over to Cleveland to give another end to Myles Garrett is going to be absolutely insane. You're going to have Garrett.
That wasn't free agency.
Can no longer be basically doubled up on that side, because you're going to have to deal with Vernon. And I think that even if the shift comes with moving Ogba inside, we'll see what happens. But that's a scary front four for the Browns this year.
Kelly?
See, I am a Steelers fan.
We like you despite that.
I do root for the Browns. I do enjoy the Browns. I love Baker Mayfield. But man, Pittsburgh got hosed.
They really did.
They got hosed. I expected so much more from the Antonio Brown trade. I really, really thought that they were going to pull the second round out, and they didn't.
Yeah, they did not get maximum value.
I didn't expect the first rounder for Brown just because of the way everything was going on. I mean, I definitely expected a little more than that.
Especially considering Oakland has 3 firsts and kept them all.
At the same point, though, do you view it as the old phrase addition by subtraction?
I would say, is it one of those you kind of just happy he's gone for the headache?
I am. I'm happy both of them are gone because historically Pittsburgh has not been a franchise to put up with any of that. Plexico Burress, see ya.
Mike Wallace,
see ya. Santonio Holmes, one of the greatest catches in Super Bowl history, gone. And peace out. They haven't been a franchise to put up with any of that crap, and I feel you got rid of
now.
Until now, yeah. I think a big part of that,
Mike Tomlin.
I would say, what's the difference?
Tomlin.
Like, what's the difference between now and then? Is it really just? Do we think it's just the coach, the culture?
I think Tomlin has gotten too comfortable.
He's a player's coach. He's not a.
He's been in it for a while.
I read a quote from him when he first came in. He says, you have to start off very aggressive and hard on guys, and then you can take it back a little bit. Because if you start off really easy and try to be friends, it's really difficult to turn that page and try to be forceful and aggressive and assertive. And I feel like he started off that way when he first came. He was very, very hard on his guys. And then I think he became a lot of a player's coach. And ever since then, the players have taken advantage of him.
I mean, he's participated in games, for crying out loud. He's tripping people on the sideline.
Right. So I think they really, really need to change a head coach to try to change things around again.
Might be time.
I think it should be.
Keep talking for a second.
I mean, it would only be the, 4th head coach since the Steel Curtain?
Yes.
Yeah.
Noel Cowher and Tomlin.
Yeah.
So, 2 of which were former Browns players, Noel and Cowher. So you're welcome.
I mean,
you can't Browns coach too.
You cannot sugarcoat the fact that the Steelers have
copied from the Browns completely, and they're terrible. Wow. I'll change gears and talk about not necessarily free agency, but an offseason move that I absolutely hate. Is what is Chicago thinking trading Jordan Howard?
He doesn't fit their scheme.
That's the stupidest argument I've ever heard.
They'd rather have last season.
He's a running back who can make big plays, score from anywhere, and catch the ball. Tell me he doesn't fit in any system. So now they trade him to the Eagles for a cup of donuts.
Trubisky has
Mitchell Trubisky in his 3rd season now?
Yep.
Third, has just lost maybe one of his biggest playmakers on offense. I still am not in love with their wide receiving core. Outside of Allen Robinson, who do they have? Exactly. So Tariq Cohen, fantastic player.
Anthony Miller, but he's unproven still.
And he's coming back from a pretty gruesome injury still, which, again, he's got all the green lights and everything.
So do they have a running back on the roster?
Tariq Cohen, who awesome in spot work. Can he step up and be a number 1 back? Who knows? We'll find out. I just feel like with all the momentum they gained by getting Khalil Mack.
I mean, you're talking about a playoff team last year.
A division winner.
Right.
So now you subtract one of your best players who seems to be a very unselfish player, kind of a nice guy to have in the locker room. I just don't get that move. I don't see how it makes them better. And they didn't even get anything for him. So you're making the Eagles, who, granted, they're not in your division, but they're still in your conference, who are, oh, by the way, a year removed from the Super Bowl. Now they're better because they lost Jay Ajayi, and I feel like upgraded the position with Jordan Howard. I think that it's a weird move to me. I know that running backs aren't valued as they used to be in the NFL, but obviously removing one of your best pieces on offense just doesn't make a team better, in my opinion.
So we'll stick with running backs, and my move isn't one that I think makes a team better. It was more of a head scratcher, just considering the production last year. And that's Mark Ingram signing that contract to go to Baltimore.
Yeah.
You got all kinds of production, almost 2,500 yards rushing out of guys like Gus Edwards, Alex Collins, Ken Dixon, and, your quarterback.
Who is a running back, by the way.
Basically. And you signed, Mark Ingram to, some stupid deal so he can be a feature back in a running back by committee offense.
Well,
and it just doesn't make any sense to me. It's one of those moves that, this is the kind of gimmick offense that after defensive coordinators have some time to prepare for? Is it going to be as successful? Do you trust Lamar? No, don't answer this, Nick, because we already know your feelings.
Yes. That's another topic for another day.
Do you trust Lamar Jackson's ability to throw the ball so you can run a traditional offense and run Mark Ingram 25 times a game when you're going to run your quarterback?
I don't think you can run Mark Ingram 25 times a game. I don't think he has the wheels left.
I don't think Lamar Jackson is going to last 25 games
to run. I'm going to put it on record. Baltimore will have the number 1 pick next year. I expect nothing.
Very bold, because there are some worse rosters.
Is terrible.
Let me ask you a question. You remember that year Miami brought back the Wildcat and it worked
for about an hour?
Everybody did it,
right?
And it guess what? Didn't work.
This is not that.
So what's the flex bone?
I'm saying from a copycat perspective that there's not going to be a repeat of everybody doing this.
No, but they're taking a college gimmick, the flex bone.
I don't understand. But a college gimmick that passed for 10,000 yards
against guys that are going to be bagging groceries in 6 years.
Still,
you get through college
in 2 seasons. Who do you throw it to? Guys that are bagging groceries now.
Who are we talking
about? Are we talking about against guys that aren't even?
Are we talking about Lamar Jackson? Or are we talking about the flex bone offense? Because it works for Georgia Tech, and then nobody ever from Georgia Tech does anything unless you're Calvin Johnson.
I don't know why they're going to try to continue with it, because the playoffs where they got shut out by the Chargers almost. I mean, you just handed everybody the script on how to stop it.
Here and that's kind of goes to my point, and maybe it's too bold for people's blood, but look at what Baltimore's done. They've lost their all-time inspirational leader, not named Ray Lewis, in Terrell Suggs. They released Eric Weddle for what God knows reason. Yeah, they signed Earl Thomas, but the dude's 100 years old and was contemplating retired anyway.
Ruptured Achilles.
Offensively, I don't know that I could name one receiver that they have not named Willie Snead.
Nope.
They've got Mark Ingram, who, great, he was a running back by committee in a passing offense in New Orleans. Granted, they did run a lot more this year. But,
and Kamara got way more touches than you.
But I struggle and think, if that team can't play from behind, it's like Cam Newton, but worse. At least Cam has a good arm from a strength perspective. I'm not saying he's the most accurate, but I struggle to believe that Baltimore is going to gain any momentum on offense. Maybe the first couple weeks they steal some wins.
They're still going to beat the Bengals.
Yeah, the Bengals are 2 free wins.
So they're going to be 2-14. But
that's still good for first pick.
But I will tell you this, and I know that I am one to throw out bold predictions, but my AFC Championship game will be represented by the Los Angeles Chargers and the Indianapolis Colts. Mark it down, book it, it's happening.
As long as it's not the Patriots, I'll buy it.
I'm saying I think the Colts are your Super Bowl 50 whatever representative in the AFC.
What happens if Lamar Jackson gets hurt, since we're just going to talk about
there goes.
Well, they have Robert Griffin III.
So they're on the same offense.
Same offense. Just worse.
Who's just a little bit better than Robert Griffin IV.
Who might not even be born yet.
Maybe. I don't know.
Really?
I think he's
quarterback in the draft, Nick?
Yeah, Nick, so rewind to last year. We, in our group chat, we were discussing the potential quarterbacks from the 2018 draft. Nick went out on a soapbox and said
Lamar Jackson.
That Lamar Jackson will have, quote, the best career of any quarterback in that draft.
Love him.
That text has been screenshotted and saved in my phone for a year.
Is Kyler Murray going to be in that same category? Because they're basically the same person.
But he's like 4 foot.
Kyler Murray throws better.
And he's 4'2".
No, he's 5'10".
Yeah, so was Johnny, and he just got concussed out of the AAF.
Yeah, he got blasted.
It just depends on what offense you land on, what team you land on, who your coach is. Do you have an offensive line? Do you have a running game?
Oh, by the way, Baltimore has no offensive line either.
No. How much of this prediction on your Baltimore finish is based on the fact that Ozzy's no longer there?
That's huge. I think that's huge.
They have so many tight ends on that roster now.
For as much as I hate Baltimore, Ozzie Newsome is a heck of a talent evaluator. He's stepping away from the front office responsibilities of the day-to-day and draft and all that. So I'm not saying that that's the main reason. I think that roster, I think they're doing, honestly, what the Browns did 2 years ago. They're ripping that thing down to the studs. They're going to get rid of everybody who's a big name and a big contract. They lost C.J. Mosley. They lost
Joe Flacco.
They traded Joe Flacco, who they stupidly made them up the highest paid quarterback in NFL history just a couple years ago. They didn't re-sign Mark Wallace. They got rid of Eric Weddle. It's just, I feel like they realize that they're in a very transition period, and I really don't expect anything from them. I think they're going to be a bad team, which is awesome because they're terrible.
And speaking of picks in the draft.
Oh, segue! I guess that's how you do it. So my topic of choice was the NFL draft that's coming up, and we are T-minus 26, 27, some odd days from that being happening.
Less than 1 month.
So I'm going to take this opportunity to promote the Facebook page, because I believe sometime before then we are going to have our group mock draft where we all pick a division and we all make picks for each team, which I thought was great last year. So we're going to do it again this year. So
it was fun until you hit like 20.
Keep an eye out for that on the Facebook page, and it will also be aggregated to Twitter and whatnot. The other thing that I want to do real quick is I'm going to actually sort of not opine about the draft, but I'm going to stick to a format and actually get everybody's opinion on something. So I'm going to go around the room and one at a time, and I'm going to get everybody on the record. And you might as well call the segment On the Record. And I'm going to ask you, I'm going to give you a scenario for the NFL draft. And you're going to tell me in 100 words or less if you love it or hate it. Cool?
I love it.
Do we know the rules? Okay, let's play. All right, let's
counting the words.
Ron Swanson.
Not me.
Got it.
All right, so we're going to start with, John.
Oh, man.
This is your scenario.
Love it.
Yeah, I haven't even told it to you
I
yet.
love that you have a scenario.
Okay, that's great. All right, so this scenario, the Browns don't have a first round pick this year.
Correct. First time in a long time.
First
since,
time.
I believe, 2008.
Second round, you're sitting at 17. Is that correct?
Yeah, number 49 overall.
Given the amount of draft capital that you currently have, would you hate it if they traded up to 30? Would you love it?
I wouldn't hate it, but I wouldn't love it. I think that one of John Dorsey's biggest strengths is his ability to evaluate talent in the, we'll call it mid to later rounds.
True.
Why pay a premium price on a player you could get at 49 when you get him at 30?
Agree.
So I think, honestly, this year I'm okay with them standing pat and kind of going with the best player available model. Yes, they have some holes, but I honestly think that this year, more so than any other, it's just take whoever's best and call it a day. Best
player available in the second round sounds great. That's definitely something that I would agree with. Okay.
More than 100 words. I counted.
It was 104.
We'll let that slide this time. All right.
So that's good for me.
Yeah.
That's very good.
All right. For the next scenario, I'm going to pick on Ryan.
Oh, jeez.
Okay. So,
jeez.
So the Steelers no longer have Antonio Brown. You have Juju Smith-Schuster, James Washington. You have pick number 20. Would you love it or hate it if they took a receiver with that 20th pick?
Boy.
That's not an answer.
They're all boys.
I think your team really needs what? Defensive backs?
They do.
Middle linebacker?
They do. Yeah, Shazier, I don't think is going to be around to play this year.
I will reserve comment.
Man, I think they have holes in other places as well. I mean, you're not going to replace Antonio Brown.
No.
You do still have Eli Rogers, and you have Switzer.
Yep.
I believe so.
Ryan Switzer.
Yeah. I think with James Conner, if he can carry the workload he had last year, I think you can get by without taking a receiver at 20.
I think the last time you drafted a receiver in the first round was Troy Edwards. It's been a while.
And I don't think he even lasted a year.
I don't think you did. Was it Holmes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I stand corrected. Okay, so on the flip side, what about a tight end? There's a couple good ones in the first round.
No, I think you're all right.
You're good at tight end? Because I know you don't have Jesse James anymore.
No, you still have McDonald.
I forgot about him. He's good.
Yeah, old McDonald.
All
He's
right.
a beast. So, no, I think you have holes elsewhere on your defense that you could address. I mean, they always struggle in pass protection or in pass defense. So your safeties, your cornerbacks, they've never, since Troy Polamalu left, I mean, if they could find a guy like that, geez.
That would be great. Yeah, they really need pass. They really need pass coverage help.
Yep.
In my opinion. Oh, the best
Head and
hair.
shoulders.
The best hair.
You're just head and shoulders above the
I
rest.
was going to say that, and I chose that.
I chose to do it.
Sponsor.
Head and shoulders.
I get a lot of sponsors today.
All right. The next scenario I'm going to throw out is to Nick.
Yes.
Yay.
This should be exciting.
Nick doesn't need Head and Shoulders.
No, I do not.
He's bald.
just
Not my choice.
to clarify why that would be necessary.
His beard looks good though.
It does. I'm actually super
I'm
jealous.
allowed
of
to
my
have
beard
it for a year.
because I
was
can't
told.
get anything over here. So,
Oh, we're going
Damn
Christmas
you.
ornaments and lights this year.
I support.
all right. So your draft scenario,
And then I'm
Nick.
going to go hate it on that.
Would you love it or hate it?
Disagree.
Shocking.
Now that you have Kareem Hunt, is if to get into the first round, you traded Nick Chubb? Love it or hate it?
I would absolutely hate that. That
Why?
would be I think Chubb is the future of your running backs. The two-back system worked so well last year because you had Chubb and you had Duke Johnson, who was a threat out of the backfield. You're still going to have Kareem Hunt, who's a threat out of the backfield, but without him for 8 games, 10 games, whatever the suspension is going to be,
True.
we're going to see what they do with Duke. I think that you still keep Duke Johnson also. I would love to see him stay on the roster. He's given you a lot over the past 3 years. He's still a huge threat out of the backfield. If you can run a 2-back system where, think about the offensive weapons. If you don't know who's getting that ball from Baker Mayfield, what are you going to do about it?
Don't you think his trade value diminishes, though, the closer Kareem Hunt gets to rejoining the roster?
Does he come back before the trade deadline? When's the trade deadline? 6 or 8?
Sometime in November.
It's week 8. Didn't they move it from 6 to 8?
Probably.
I don't remember.
I think that Kareem Hunt's on the 1-year prove-it deal is going to be a thing too, because you're going to still see that national media attention come after Kareem Hunt. And you're going to see it come after.
Why wouldn't you look to trade Duke Johnson instead of Nick Chubb?
Alternative.
I think you'd be crazy to do anything.
But I think Kareem Hunt is more on the lines of a Duke Johnson kind of player.
Absolutely.
Speed catching out of the backfield, as opposed to Nick Chubb being a downhill runner, grab the ball straight through the line.
You know who's really good at doing what Duke Johnson does is Duke Johnson. So why get rid of him, especially when you can't?
You're not going to be able to rotate 3 running backs.
But you're not going to. When did Kareem Hunt play last? We're assuming that he's going to be in football shape coming off at the end of last season, having been cut by the Chiefs, and 8 games into the 2019 season.
But
he's living on Bell's side out a whole year.
To the point, there's
But
no
he
way.
didn't come midway through the season and expect to be a giant.
To the point, there's no way you get rid of Chubb. Chubb had
not at all.
1,000 yards in his rookie year, and he played arguably 10 games. 996.
Yeah.
And arguably played 10 games.
Yeah.
I think we went over 100 words.
I think so too.
That's fair. I think you sign Carlos Hyde again.
That one started more of a debate than I thought it would.
San Francisco? No.
He came from San Francisco.
I don't know where he went.
Okay, so for my last scenario for Sam, I'm going to actually get away from the Browns for a second,
Love it.
and we're gonna throw this scenario at you, and anybody else can chime in on this. But this is your scenario. Would you love it or hate it? Not that you have any stake in either of these teams.
Steak.
Oh, now I'm hungry. I'm getting Taco Bell after this.
Oh,
Sponsored. Not sponsored.
Your toilet is going to be miserable.
It already is. Would you love it or hate it if the Raiders traded all 3 of their first-round picks to move up to number 1 and draft Kyler Murray?
love it.
You would love it?
I would love it.
All 3.
And here's why. I'm obviously not Sam, but I'm going to steal his thunder.
That's a Gruden.
If there's one team that needs to make a splash to reinvigorate their fan base, to get excitement for their move to Las Vegas, to put the red bow on this John Gruden, Mike Mayock combination, it's the Oakland Raiders. If that team, even if they don't have any intention of drafting Kyler Murray, let's say they move up to get Nick Bosa.
That's exactly where I was going.
I wouldn't trade 3 1s for Bosa.
But it's crazy enough to
trade
work.
3 1s, period.
It's
you
crazy.
still have 3, but you have 3 1s.
Great. And they're like 27. So it's 4, 20, and 27, something like that.
24, 27, and 4.
Okay. So essentially 27 is almost a second round pick. We'll call it that.
Disagree.
Fine. But just think of it less from a talent standpoint and more of a splash standpoint. The Raiders, we don't even know where they're playing next year. They don't know where they're playing next year. This is a team that desperately needs some kind of identity, they need a shot in the arm to get their fans to care about them again.
Isn't that Antonio Brown though?
I mean, it doesn't hurt.
Good point.
It doesn't hurt, but I mean,
I don't
is
Kyler Murray or Bosa going to be bigger than Antonio Brown? No.
From a name recognition and a splash standpoint, absolutely. Derek Carr is white bread. He's boring. He's consistent, but I don't think the front office or the coaching staff are level.
What do you do with him? You're paying him
trade him
$80 million?
I'm not.
Well, I mean,
anything.
Good luck unloading that contract in the current market with teams pretty much already settled at quarterback.
Miami? Did you name their quarterback?
Ryan Fitzpatrick, and they are in tank mode. That's why he's there.
Derek Carr makes $25 million a year.
Okay. That's
not too bad.
It's a decent contract going back to contract.
It's the 6th highest contract in the NFL.
I'm just saying, if there's a team that needs to make a move to gain momentum, to gain excitement, to gain that kind of notoriety that they haven't had for years,
John Gruden.
It's the Raiders. And what's he done?
Traded their best linebacker.
Roster.
He's got one of the best receivers in the league.
He made a 4-11 team a 4-12 team a 5-11 team. That's all he's done right now.
And he got rid of Khalil Mack.
And then he said it's hard to find good pass rushers.
I mean,
I'm just saying.
Oakland's in so much trouble,
if
though.
I love the move or hate the move, I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. From an energy standpoint, I love it.
Yeah, but energy doesn't win you games. Who cares if you're
sells
franchise?
Tickets.
They're going to sell tickets regardless in Vegas.
See, I actually think they're going to have a hard time.
I agree.
I don't.
There's a lot to do in Vegas.
And especially if the Raiders are bad.
Like, how many people really live in Vegas that are going to be like, this is 17. My team? Well, it's a place to travel to.
The Vegas Golden Knights have sold out every single hockey game.
They're good. They win.
Even before then, from game one, they've sold out every single
When they start
game.
losing, the fans will turn on them quicker than an angry mob.
What's difference from that than any other fan base?
There is no fan base in Vegas.
There is, though.
Look at Cleveland. The Indians were in the World Series a couple years ago. The Cavs won the finals a couple years ago.
My segment's going off the rails.
Couldn't care less. Cleveland will always be a football town. The Indians could win 150 games. The Cavs could win 80 games. Doesn't matter. The Browns are always going to be first and foremost in that city. Conversely, the Rams were in the Super Bowl. I guarantee you, those fans couldn't tell you who their starting quarterback is. It's a basketball town. It's a fickle city. There's so much to do, to Nick's point, from an entertainment venue, from a sports venue, from everything you can think of. They're not going to tolerate mediocrity or losing.
I don't. But trading 3 number 1 picks
is exciting.
Yes, but to your point, they're not going to tolerate losing.
But
that's going to hurt you.
That's a win on draft day.
Yeah, but you're not winning games.
Doesn't matter.
You just said it did.
If you're asking me if I love the move or I hate it, if I'm the Raiders franchise from a fan base standpoint, I love it because we're gaining we are now the top.
You're gaining notoriety in a name, but you're going to lose games because you don't have the players to win. So you're going to lose your fan base.
That's
what you just said.
Was that day that you drafted Johnny Manziel? Was that still a win?
They're going to sell a shitload of Kyler Murray jerseys if they do it.
Sold a shitload of Manziel jerseys.
But to your point, you just said that they don't have a fan base unless they win games.
Right. And right now,
Kyler Murray is not going to win you games either.
But that's something to worry about in the future.
You're contradicting your point.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
I love the move.
Ryan is totally correct. You are definitely contradicting.
You are contradicting your point. So you win on draft day, but you lose games.
Okay, you're assuming that Kyler Murray is going to flame out, which I agree with you that he might.
You have a better chance of taking your 3 draft picks and getting one good person out of it than you do of taking your 1 draft pick and getting one good guy out of it.
I agree with that 100%. However,
you make us
for Mike Mayock, for John Gruden, for the Oakland / Las Vegas / wherever they're going to end up Raiders.
We're way over.
They're so boring.
Way over.
They're so irrelevant right now. That kind of a move puts them on the map, gets the momentum, gets everybody talking about them, and it's almost like a season be damned.
And then you lose your games because you don't have the players to win, and then you lose all that fan base anyways.
Unless Kyler Murray ends up being a stud.
It's not worth risking it on that.
We're definitely going to revisit this at one point. Sam, thank you very much for that.
I just want to make my quick 100-word point.
Make your quick 100-word point. Thank you.
I hope it fails, and I hope they do it, and it fails because I hate John Gruden, and I hope it just puts him on the hot seat and gets him out. That's it. I'm done.
I feel like we've all forgotten about what Mike Ditka did to go up and get Ricky Williams and how bad that turned out.
How well did that work?
It didn't work. So The question
John Gruden
was
signed the stupidest contract in a coach's career ever, and I hope it doesn't work.
the question was would you love it or hate it if they traded all 3 picks to move up to number 1, grab Kyler Murray, and oh my gosh, that opened a can of worms.
Hate
I love it.
Hate it.
I love it.
You can find a topic for next
I
time.
love it for a different reason.
All right. Well, I
If
think
it happens, we got a hell of a topic next time.
I think that's going to wrap it up, guys. We have gone a lot longer than we really wanted to on our first podcast. But we've had...
If you stay here till the end, please notify us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, because we will totally send you some T-shirt that we just find in a drawer.
No, Brian Satina is going to make us some T-shirts
with potentially infringed copyright
from Mad Park Designs.
Yeah, Mad Parks Design. He's in Charlotte.
Why would you hype that?
Why not? He's a friend of ours. So we really appreciate you guys listening. I hope you had as much fun as we did. I mean, I had a blast doing this.
So good.
Keep your eye out on our Facebook, on our Twitter, on our Instagram, on our YouTube, and then we're going to upload this on the SoundCloud as well. And like I said, we really had a lot of fun doing this. And Sam is using a...
Next time we'll go off the air with a little less arguing.
So we really appreciate it.
That was the best part of the
I think we should argue more.
I agree.
It was fantastic.
So I hope we were able to give you some reasons to come back and listen to our voice. Love it. See what I did there?
Hate it.
All right, guys, take it easy. Look forward to seeing you later. See ya.